All right. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
I can. All right. So we'll just let people trickle in. I guess before we get to the main topic, so what games are you playing currently?
I've actually been playing a bunch of 360 games.
Hmm.
Burnout Paradise, Prototype 2, and Resident Evil Code Veronica.
Really? Well, Code Veronica was a re-release, wasn't it? Wasn't that originally
Yeah,
Dreamcast?
that was actually on Dreamcast, and I don't know. That was the tank controls are just terrible. They just don't.
Also,
They don't
why are
work
you
well.
in like a void? What is going on?
There you go.
Okay, that's mildly better.
There you go. That's much better.
All right. Well, anyway,
What have you been playing, GK?
I have been playing a little bit of Limnus Gate.
Okay. How is it?
Have been. It's actually really good. It's an amazing concept. I don't remember. Did I ever talk to you about that one off stream?
Yeah, you did. That one actually looked like a lot of fun.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, it's like a time bending, like really crazy. Like basically, it's a 1v1 or a 2v2, but the main mode is a 1v1, where you play one character, you perform an action, and there's usually a goal, like capture the flag or capture point. So you play that one character, and typically that one character will do a bunch of objectives. Then the second player goes, and that second player will usually counter the other player, like kill them immediately, because they are playing in real, well, they're playing at the same time the inputs that player one put in. And then after that, player one goes again, and they will either kill the person that killed their first player, or go to do other objectives to try to like spread out what they have to do. And this goes back and forth for 5 rounds, where they'll be constantly countering or readjusting of your strategy, and you really have to think ahead. One of the best games I think I played with, like, I was playing with someone, and we're both like bumbling idiots. We're still trying to figure it out. We were doing tit for tat. We were doing attack and defense. He was defending. I was attacking. I would attack, destroy his shit. He would defend, kill my guy, or defend his stuff better. And it kept going back and forth. And then I was on my last turn, and he had one more turn ahead of me. I decided to play a character that would. There's a character that can shield your guys, so they can take more damage. But it's hard to actually shield your teammates, because you basically shoot like a gun that sticks on your teammates, and then they get shielded. So what I did at the beginning of every round, I had my character stand for like 2 seconds, and then they ran ahead. So in the last round, they all stood still, and I got my shield guy to ping all the guys, all my team. They all got shielded. And when it was his turn, he had no way of really countering that. He was able to kill maybe one extra guy, but everyone else survived their initial counter, so I managed to kill everything. Pretty
I
amazing.
like
Like, you really have to think ahead.
Yeah, it's a different concept, and I really like that idea that the shields is not just like a point and click type of thing. You have
It's
to actually
hard to
shoot
shield people.
your
You got to
teammates.
think
That's
about
cool.
it.
Yeah, that's
You got to
cool.
think about it. If you start off running straight gun ho, everyone's gonna run in different directions. So typically the shielder will have to choose who to shield, and then try to like rebound other people. But anyway, so that was the game I'm currently playing, and I hope this game gets popular. It had like little play, but it is free on PSN. Anyway,
That should help it.
so I think talking about the current games we're playing, I think this could transition into our topic at hand. Games that shaped us, or games that basically turned us into the gamer we are today. This was inspired by a tweet thread that was going around a few weeks ago, 5 games, 5 tags, and you were supposed to say 5 games that made you to the gamer you are today, and then you're supposed to tag other people to do the same thing. And I thought that was a pretty good idea, but we're going to expand that, and me and Deathrow here are going to try to fully explain all the games throughout each stage of our life that was relevant, that was important in some way. So we're gonna start with our early childhood. Would you like to start, or do you want me to have the floor?
Yeah, yeah. So I'm gonna start like way, way back. This is actually the very first game I ever played. Um, so my very first console was actually not like a home console. It was actually a portable, if you want to call that a console. But it was the Game Boy Pocket. It was just the
Mm.
original Game Boy, but in pocket form. And
It
I
was a slightly
remember,
smaller version, right?
yeah, it was thinner, and it actually used, because one thing I hate about the original Game Boy is it used to use very like it used to use four double A's, so it was a lot of batteries, and the parents hated
Money
it.
back
Yeah,
then.
a lot of money. Parents hated it because they had to spend so much in batteries. But the Game Boy Pocket only used two AAA batteries, so it was a lot cheaper. Um, but anyway, I was 5 years old and I got my very first game, and it was Pokemon Red and Pokemon Blue. So for me, that was that was obviously my first game. So I have a huge following because of that. But to be fair, all these years later, nostalgia aside, I have to say Pokemon Red and Blue really set the stage right. Okay, because if I go back and I play any RPG, JRPG, there's a lot of good ones out there that are older. One that comes to mind is Final Fantasy VI. Um, that's one that everybody always talks about. They're like, "Wow, that game's so good." Some know it
Final
as,
Fantasy 3 or
yes.
6? Which
Well,
one?
some know it
The
as
real
Final Fantasy
3
three,
or the fake 3?
the one on the SNES. So most people know it
The
as,
one with Kafka, right?
yeah, yeah. People know it as Final Fantasy three here in the United States, but it's really Final Fantasy six. But anyway, I mean that game's awesome. But I have to say, what Pokemon Red and Blue did right is they actually, like, they took such a simple concept, collect them all, right? Collect all the Pokemon and battle them. And they just took it and made it so simple in such a small package that I think that kind of shaped the industry, and definitely shaped me as a gamer, because it made me start to realize, oh hey, you can collect everything, like, because before that I never cared. I played Pokemon Red and Blue, although it was my first game. I played it for years and years and years, and I always wanted to collect everything. So I was never a collector in any game before that, but that really made me one.
That game was different in that what you collected had tangible use, unlike other games where it
yeah,
was mostly just a number.
yeah, yeah. Like a good example is, I don't know if anybody's ever played Crash Bandicoot, but all those games, you have to collect every peach or every box in the game, and then you would get like a special gem. All the gem does is it gives you like bragging rights for yourself, right? It doesn't do anything. It has no
I
physical.
think it gave you 100% bonus, but I think that's sort of like, I don't know how to describe it. It's less about the collections themselves, like in Pokemon, and more about the 100% reward, which is like a
Yeah,
lot more to work into than
yeah,
getting each Pokemon, which you can then change your team up and change your strategies up.
yeah. I mean, like, what are you gonna do? You have some bragging rights that says, "Hey, I 100%ed Crash Bandicoot." Like, okay, great, good for you. But for Pokemon, there is a use to it. But it definitely sets the stage for really just it, an all around, like, in my opinion, just a great game, because you level up your party, you get close with them, you pick all your favorites. It's just it really changed the genre too, because you have certain games like Final Fantasy 3, I was just saying, which are great games, but those are more complex and there's a lot going on. Pokemon just did it nice and simple, so it's so easy to pick up. And that's why me at 5 years old was able to just pick it up and play it, and I loved it.
Mm.
And I've loved RPGs since. And I have to say, if I played a different RPG, I don't think it would have been that case. Some of them are a little more complex and difficult to get into. So Pokemon was a good choice as a starter, and I don't think anything
Mm.
did it before that was nice and simple like that. So
Yeah, so I guess I'll sort of piggyback off of that. I won't talk about my very first game, but I will sort of transition from Pokemon because one of the first handheld I had a Game Boy. It was the one with the clear casing so you can see the insides, and
I
I
think
thought
that's the
that
Game
was
Boy
cool.
Color. Yeah.
Yeah, it was the Game Boy Color was the first thing handheld I owned.
Okay.
And I also had Pokemon Blue, I remember.
Ah.
And me being a stupid kid, That was actually too complicated for me, and I did not understand what to do or what was going on. And I really wasn't that into the Pokemon craze. All my friends were, and they had the card game, and I never got into the card game. So, my cousin had Mario Brothers Deluxe, which was the original Mario Brothers re-release on the Game Boy Color. It added a couple of features, level selects and whatnot, some extra collectibles. So we traded. I gave him Pokemon Blue for Mario Brothers Deluxe. People tell me I made a terrible trade, but I played the hell out of Mario Brothers Deluxe. I thoroughly enjoyed that game. And that sort of, and at the time I went for more like a simple sort of games, like a lot of platformers, and I did start to get into shooters. But because of that, I never really got into RPGs. I did not get into RPGs until like much later for the most part, and I'm more into action RPGs like, Fallout. But yeah, I never got into Pokemon because even that sort of got into the complex like RPG nature of like grinding, and I just didn't get it. For some reason, it was just too complicated to me to select an action and you don't really see it play out. You just get text explaining what happened. Didn't really appeal to me at the time. Well, and I guess sort of thinking about the first game I have ever played, I don't really recall exactly the first game, but the first console I owned was an NES, a hand-me-down NES. And at this point, like the Super NES was like popular. So I have the memory of taking the stupid screw to screw on the NES. And it was like an RF converter box. I don't remember.
Oh yes, yep. Those boxes that you put in the back of your TV to connect it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was a massive pain in the ass, and I didn't fully understand how to hook it up. But eventually, my dad or my sister did it, and we would occasionally play various NES games. Which one of them was the Mario Brother and Duck Hunt. The quintessential game.
Yep.
We had a light gun, and I would always just go straight up to the TV and just, cheat. But I got bored of Duck Hunt and the clay pigeon thing pretty quickly, and I mostly fixated on Mario Brothers. And we also played the first, not the Mario Brothers like everyone knows it, going through the levels of Safe Peach. It was the other one where it's never ending. There's like a set level and you have to kill the enemies.
It's like 2 or 3 floors, right? And you have to
the arcade Mario Brothers. That was the one I actually played more of because I was more easily able to understand that one. But I did start to get into that, and we had a couple of other games. The only ones I can really remember were some pinball game I don't remember the name of. It was like the main pinball game on the NES. And one Bart versus the Space Mutants, which the nerd reviewed. Yeah. And in my childhood mind, I was like, oh wow, this is a crazy epic adventure. I mean, we never got that far in the game. I remember the latest boss we got to was Nelson, which was like a mini boss in level 1. And I just thought, oh wow, you have to be really good to make it through this epic journey. But it really wasn't. But yeah, and we had a couple of games, not a lot, but then eventually we jumped from NES to N64, which is a very jarring change. And I remember really my sisters had it and they sort of hid it from me at first. So, and when we found out about it, it was like just suddenly, we got a new game console. The NES, I think, which broke at that point. We just kept it in the basement, and we started playing that with Mario 64, which we can transition to like the slightly later genre. But those NES games and that NES we owned, right in the garbage, gone. Anyway,
wow.
So I guess I'll start with you. So going from your earlier games to ones that were slightly later in your childhood, and anyone in the chat, if you want to chime in too, feel free.
I actually just wanted to piggyback off that for a second, because I remember you would see these, because we eventually got a PlayStation 1, and you would see these grand adventures in PlayStation 1, because keep in mind, I was coming from a Game Boy Pocket. I mean, those games were very basic. Yeah. So in PS1, which is similar to N64, you saw these grand adventures and you were like, wow, like you have to be really good. And part of that was because, a perfect example is Croc, Legend of the Gobos. It was which actually
That was
originally was
originally
supposed
a
to be
Yoshi game.
Yeah, it was originally a Yoshi game. But that game, it was always such a grand adventure, and I would never get very far. But also, I didn't realize you could actually save your progress with a memory card. We never had a memory card, so I never knew you could save your progress. So I always thought that was hilarious.
I felt the same way about the
So
N64 memory card.
yeah, well, yeah. So I thought you had to do it all in one sitting. So just very funny. But you know, as time went on, we eventually got PlayStation 1. We got a PlayStation 2, which really brings me to my next game, which is really like that PlayStation 2 era, right? That's when I was a kid and everybody was fighting. Hey, what's the best console? PlayStation 2, GameCube, or Xbox? It was always the talk.
Console wars.
The console war.
You get fights over that.
Yeah. For me, and I don't know if it was just because this was my childhood at the time, or if maybe this is truly the case. I feel like that was the biggest console war I've ever seen, and for me personally, was what's better, PS2, GameCube, or Xbox? We kids used to fight, fist fight over that. I mean, it was crazy.
It was almost as tense as religious or political debates.
yeah. That's kind of what it reminds me of. Just back on the schoolyard, literally, just punching each other, arguing over what's better.
You got the PlayStation gang, the Nintendo gang, and there's like a gang war about to start.
That's so funny.
It broke up friendships.
Sometimes. Yeah. But I mean, funny enough. No, go ahead.
I was about to say, or occasionally people would like all of them, but they know they can't have them all. So one friend would commit to having one, another friend would tell their parents they want another, and then they would just like go to each other's houses to spread the gaming love.
Well, that's exactly what I did. Yeah,
the childhood gamer hippie types passing around the games like joints.
Yeah. I mean, funny enough, the PlayStation 2 I think was the best sell. It's today I think it's still the best selling console of all time. So
you could probably look that up. I think the Wii is.
I don't know.
Don't correct me on that. It might be the Wii. Well, yeah, no. Continue with your point. I'm gonna look that up.
Well, yeah. So I had the PlayStation 2, but I was the only one in my whole class that had a PlayStation 2, which I find is so weird. But I can remember, really, this was also the birth of like party games, the explosion of party games. Now I know the N64 had them. The PS1 had them, but you had to get like a multi-tap, which made it, 4 controllers. But for me, the real party game started in like GameCube, Xbox, PS2, because that's like, N64 had it, but I feel like GameCube and Xbox started to perfect it. Now, PlayStation 2 was not smart because they only had 2 controller ports, right? So you were never able to do that grand 4-player party system. But the Xbox and GameCube, you could. And that leads me to my next game, which is Super Smash Bros. Melee. That game, that was the first game that I played that I realized how competitive people can get at a game, because there's like skill levels. Every game I played before, it was story mode. You play the game, you beat it, you're done. That's it. And then, occasionally you play like Crash. We had Crash Team Racing, which is like a kart racer. And that was like a novelty to have the multiplayer. I mean, yeah, it was super fun, but we never got super competitive with it the way you did in Super Smash Bros. Melee or these other party games on the GameCube or Xbox. That game really shaped me because you had these characters, which are all different. It kind of reminds me a lot of, because currently I play a ton of League of Legends. And
that was actually like the first childhood exposure to fighting games, because that was more of like a young adult kind of thing.
Yeah. You have all these characters that are completely unique, different moveset, although some were complete ripoffs of the other, like Ganondorf and Captain Falcon.
The clones.
The clones. But it was the first game that showed me that people could get super competitive. And there was like, there was different skill levels involved. And it just was a great time because you would have a bunch of people together, just playing, taking turns, playing, trying to figure out who's the champion of everybody. And it was just a great time.
Yeah. Yeah, I have fond memories of that. So I'm just gonna dial it back to my memories of the N64 because I that was really relevant. And I looked it up. You were right. PS2 actually is
Yeah,
the
which
best
is
selling by a
funny.
lot. Actually,
Yeah.
the Nintendo DS and the PlayStation 2 are neck and neck. But
Mm.
home console, PlayStation 2 runs away with it with 155 million. The next home console is actually the PlayStation 4 with 116 million. The
Wow.
Wii is 101 million. All right. Anyway,
I always wondered.
mild fact check. Hmm?
I always wondered if the Xbox One is going to outsell that because I think the new Xbox
Hmm.
Series S and X are considered part of the Xbox One line. So it always makes
Yeah,
me
I don't know. Do
wonder,
they
can
count
that
them all
count?
together as one, or do they
That
separate
would be
them,
cheating.
ensuring that
That
they
would
are
be,
not the most?
yeah, that would be cheating. I don't
That's
know.
a weird question.
Yeah.
Anyway, so for me, when I got the N64, that's when I started to get really into the gaming. I never really did with the NES as much. I was just too young. I really couldn't understand it. I still was kind of young with the N64. At the time, my sisters were the primary user and owner, but then it started to phase out for them and started to go more into my camp, where eventually it was in their room, but then it eventually got moved to my room. So and I actually started to get a real library of games. Obviously, the first game, like I think most people who played the N64 at that age, it was Mario 64. Which, going from Mario Brothers on the NES, it was a huge jump. You work in 3Ds. It was like, wow, a whole adventure. You go into the castle, you can explore, go into these paintings. And I was still kind of young. My sisters had to sort of point out and tell me where to go and what to do. It took me a while before I was able to really do anything in the game myself. Which is funny because I can beat the game in about 2 hours now, 70-star run. Uh, but I think the first game I was able to beat on my own and reliably was Yoshi's Story, which compared to other N64 games, it's more simple. It's 2D and he had some like branching paths, not nothing anything major. And there was only like I don't remember exactly. There was like five to 10 levels, and I really can't remember until you got to the final boss. The Yoshi Story is coming back on the N64 emu on the Switch. But that aside, it was the first game I was able to beat on my own because the objective was very clear, just like eat the fruit, get to the end, then fight the final boss, which I thought was a super hard fight, but really it was really easy. So I felt really accomplished whenever I beat that game. And I played that game several times over because I think, oh man, I'm so good, let me try other levels. And occasionally there was a level I just didn't know what to do, and I would skip that. I would choose a different level and think, wow, I'm so good. Never really 100%ed the game or found the hidden Yoshis. There was a hidden black and white Yoshi and a rumored brown Yoshi that was total bogus. But that aside, going after gaming rumors could make for a funny topic.
That would
But
be good. Yeah.
yeah, but and then the other major game that I can remember getting really into was Bomberman Hero. My cousin, who also had a N64, that was a game he was playing, and I was watching him play it, and I thought that kind of reminded me of Mario 64, but involved with bombs and explosions, and ooh, this looks kind of fun. So I eventually asked my parents, and I got that one eventually, and I started to play through it. That one, um, the levels sometimes were a little less typical and it was a little harder to figure out, but this got me to my first experience of making it to the very end, like actually struggling to fight the final boss rush because there was kind of like a boss rush at the end. Getting to the very final boss, having a difficult time, and experiencing my first save game corrupt and losing fucking everything.
That
Going
happened on
back
the
to the beginning.
N64.
Happened on, yeah, I don't know what happened. I
Interesting.
just turned the game console on one day and my save file was gone. I have no idea what happened. I don't know if maybe like the console got unplugged in the middle of the game or in the middle of the saving do not turn off, but my save file was gone. I had to start all over again. So I tried. I did. I played through the game. I was pissed, but I remember getting through the game pretty quickly since I knew some of the weird quirks of some of the other levels. Um then when I got to the final boss rush, I got frustrated because there was a boss that early on that I couldn't beat, and then at some point I stopped playing it. that was like one of my bigger gaming regrets. I never went back to finish Bomberman Hero, so I might have to do that one of these days.
Oh, you might have to do that on
And
stream.
yeah, probably have to do that on stream, like going back to reclaim my childhood. And another thing I really liked was the Mario Party series. I owned Mario Party 1. I never like you know where I live. It's like super spread out. I don't have a neighbor to the left of my house, and it was very difficult to actually hang out with friends. I did that a very small handful of times. I only played Mario Party with friends a small handful of times, and was only with one other friend. I mostly played Mario Party single player, and it was just kind of depressing, or with my sister, but that was also kind of rare. So I didn't experience Mario Party like to the truest extent until much later, and I've always wanted to go back to Mario Party. But yeah, anyway, do you I don't know if you want to talk about like these cheesy little flash games you played as a kid. Like do you want to talk about that, or that not as relevant for you?
Yeah, I mean, Flash games, that was always a big thing. My mom would always say, no, you cannot go on cartoonnetwork.com. It gives us viruses.
Oh, that old nonsense. You can't
Yeah.
even visit a website. Oh my god, I can't believe how stupid everyone was.
That was back in the day. I mean, I guess parents really didn't know, right? So I would always go to cartoonnetwork.com. It's the only site I knew of, right? Because they always advertised it to you. So
Yeah.
I'd play all these fun games. I mean, some of them were actually pretty fun, to be fair. I mean, usually they were a rip off of some other game, but
I
um,
remember the Ed, Ed and Eddie skateboarding one.
yeah, the skateboarding one, I remember that one.
Some of those games are lost too with the death of Flash, which is a shame.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Some of them are no longer around. It's just stories, but um, yeah, I mean, none of them. I can say that none of them actually like stayed with me forever. As in, like, wow, I
They were
remember
easily
that.
forgettable a lot of the time.
They're usually forgettable. They kept you busy for like an hour, right? But
Yeah, they were like a distraction to the real games.
yeah, exactly.
Or at
But
school.
for
Sometimes.
me, they were usually something I did when a computer was around, which was not my house. Usually I was around a computer at school or at my dad had his own business, so he had a computer there. And there's no gaming consoles there, and you're usually out of batteries or something on your Game Boy. So um, you would go on the Flash games. I can remember very specifically Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon, Nick.com, CartoonNetwork.com. They had some
Yeah, because you
really
watched
good ones. Codename Kids Next Door. I never really liked the show, but the games were good. The games were really good.
Yeah.
Etta and Eddie had some good ones too. There was a bunch of good ones, but one thing that I will never forget when it comes to Flash games is I remember being in second grade. In fact, I think I was even in first grade. And so that's 98. So it's right when Pokemon Red and Blue came out. We go into the computer lab where all the computers are, and this kid says, "Hey, go to javagames.com." I'm like,
Mm,
okay. So I went to
he's telling you to go to the
javagames.com.
dark alley.
Yeah. And you were able to play Pokemon Red and Blue on the Flash game. It was like,
The early emus, right.
yeah. And it was like, you're able to do this on a computer. You could play any game you wanted. They had the whole library as a Flash
You
game.
couldn't save. I don't recall you were able to save anything.
You were not able to save, but it was just amazing to me that you could like, if you think about it, like emulating something that's current gen. And only recently have we been able to do that again, because you haven't been able to do that for a long time, right?
Yeah, well, the Game Boy Advance was obviously the handheld consoles were weaker technology, so they were
Yeah.
easier to emulate. They couldn't
Yeah.
really do N64. That I mean, N64 is a whole nother complicated story with emulation. It's still today emulators still kind of struggle, but anyway, with go on with the Flash game.
Well, yeah. I mean, even the 360 and the PS3 today, we're struggling to emulate it, which is crazy. I mean,
Yeah,
but
give a little
actually,
bit of time for those.
today you can even emulate the Switch perfectly. I mean, there's tons of games that are being emulated right now perfectly, which is cool.
Which
but
I don't condone. I do
no,
not
of course not.
condone
Of course not.
emulation only for
But
educational preservation purposes.
for me, I mean, that was the biggest thing that stayed with me, was just that ability to play like a current generation on Flash. I mean, otherwise they were fun games, but I never loved them.
I got into like a lot of Flash games at school. Like I remember bonus.com, which is that site is no longer up, and that URL is like worth an insane amount of money, but no one's willing to pick it up. And I remember in school my first massive, well, technically massive multiplayer experience. Really, there's two, but the main one was, does anyone know of a little game called Battlefield? No, not the shooter, not like Battlefield 1942. There was a really generically named tank fighting game called Battlefield, which has renamed itself to Tank Pit. And it was, I didn't realize it was turn based. It tricked you into thinking it was like a real time tank battle, but all it was it was four teams of different colors. You had a tank with, a health bar. You had a rank. You had to find equipment, ammunition for stronger weapons, and there's mines everywhere that you had to clear. And the whole game was just fighting the other team, ranking yourself up. But I just thought it was amazing that everyone I'm fighting was a real person. Like, this was so different, and I struggled for quite a bit at first because there was like people who knew how to play the game properly, but it was like one of those things where you had to look through every nook and cranny to find this equipment so that you can become stronger, find shields, like double shots, homing shots, and all that. And I was just so amazed by it, and the ranking system. Like, I wanted to rank up, I wanted to be the highest level, but I will say that game had a garbage system for ranking up. So it was very simple, where you attack people, and you gain experience from that. But at some point, in order to rank up, you have to kill someone who's one rank below you. So that system resulted in everyone just go, like, basically punching down. Like, if you were the rank that other people needed to level up, they will just hound you, chase you down, and every time you die, you went down a rank. So every time you died, you went down a rank. And when you go down a rank, you become weaker and easier to kill, and then you could be targeted by other people who used to be your peers. Now they needed to kill you to get your rank. And it was a not a great system, but it was still like a fun, battling adventure for me. Like those old Flash games. And I remember at school we play like a lot of like of like these little Flash games, and particularly when I used to visit my sister in college, my parents would, like, or my sister or my parents would put me on her laptop, and she had amazing internet called broadband, which was super fast, better than dial-up. And they would put me on these like addictive games, like 100, like 99 game websites, and most of these were incredibly forgettable. And she would occasionally download a couple games for me. I remember playing one game that stuck with me that I had trouble finding, and it was like a very basic asteroids, like looking. It was vector line graphics. You played a little spaceship to fight other spaceships. You had to land on a planet to claim that planet. And then you basically had to spread. It was almost like territories, and there was other enemies AI controlled that had the same, that were able to do the same thing. And I just the fact, just the way it played with the gravity physics and all that, and I could not for the life of me find that game for years. I tried looking it up, but how can you look up a space shooter with, like,
Yeah.
like capturing planets? So recently, I went on a Reddit called Tip of My Joystick. The whole point of this Reddit is to like explain a game you remember that you can't find. So I went on this Reddit, not expecting much. I was like, I tried to explain every little detail I could. Oh, the planet, they were not that big compared to your ship. They had these little squares in the middle of them, which represented the planet's health. You had to land on another planet, and that planet became another base. I thought this was a Flash game that maybe lost to time. And then like an hour later, some dude just responded, Gravity Well. And I clicked on it. I was like, holy shit, this is it. This game is basically a DOS. It was a downloadable game. It wasn't a Flash game, but it was an abandonware game that like how does this guy know this? How did he recognize it from my really terrible description? And it was just really, really bizarre to me.
I think
Hey, and
everybody has
hey,
a game
hey,
like that.
Dan, how are you
Yeah.
doing? Anyway, do you want to continue with that line
Well,
of thinking, or?
Well, yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that because I think everybody's got a game that they can remember, but they have no idea the name. I mean, I specifically have it was a vertical shooter at Pizza Hut, and it was an arcade cabinet. I
Mm.
can't describe really many features to you because I mean it was so long ago. I can remember that you either a tank or you were an airplane, and you just had to do vertical shooter stuff. Um,
Mm.
that's all I can really tell you. I mean, it's so long ago I can't remember, but I think
Sounds like
everybody's
you
got
need
a
to
game.
go on that Reddit tip of my joystick.
Well, I was actually doing that just now as you were saying it. So I'm gonna right after this, I'm gonna post a thing asking. I mean, it's so generic what I remember. I don't remember much, but the fact that it was in Pizza Hut, I think it was in multiple Pizza Huts. So maybe somebody will say, "Hey, that's whatever." So
I mean, arcade games. Just look up arcade games of that era, and the Reddit is called "Tip of My Joystick." They have actually a form to fill out, where you explain as much as you can the graphics, the rough estimate year it came out, the console or PC if it came out on PC, and then as much description as you can, and then people would try to help you find the game. Pretty cool thing, and that could be like a whole nother topic. Do you have any other memories of like the early adolescence? Well, anyway, you have the floor.
well, just kind of piggybacking off of what we were talking about before, of kind of like party games, and I mean, things were a lot different back then, where how you played multiplayer games. But I can remember the first game. This game has really, really shaped me into the gamer I am today. Because seeing this, I never had it. This was the game that everybody wanted, or at least I always wanted, but I can never have because I never had the console. This game was a console seller, and people actually refer to it today as you need a console seller like this game, and that game is Halo. That game,
I
um,
never heard of it.
that game really, I mean, it changed everything because I never saw like a first person shooter like that before. I mean, it changed the way first person shooters are. Um, I think it actually designed the very first dual joystick layout that we still use today for first person shooters.
That
Um,
wasn't the first game. I don't think. I actually remember playing Turok, which had like the same controls,
but
but
did it
with
have
the C button.
dual joysticks?
No, they had the C buttons because the N64's controller was a piece of shit.
So maybe they got the idea
But
off
if you
that. But
emulate it now, you can actually do the dual joystick
yeah,
thing.
yeah. No, I remember the C buttons, and it worked like
Actually, I
okay.
think Dreamcast also did that too for a lot of like for Quake.
Well,
Don't quote me
even
on that.
yeah, yeah. I mean, when it comes to stuff like that, it's like hard to tell who came first. But um, I mean, even still, that game was like, wow, it was so badass. Like, there's no other way to describe it. It was just so cool to see a first person shooter like that because I had never seen anything like it before.
It was
And
very advanced.
yeah, it was very advanced, and it did so many things that I had just never seen before. And it was really like just amazing to see. But it was the only game I ever wanted on the Xbox. So like, what am I going to get an Xbox just for that? That's what my mom always said, and it's like, that's why I never got an Xbox. So it was always
Yeah,
that
the
game. It was
economics of
like
that.
that. It was
The
that
console
game you
seller.
yeah, well, yeah, it was a console seller, but it was that game you wanted but can never have. And I only played
Forbidden
it
fruit.
years later. Um, I finally owned Halo 3, which is the first one I owned. But even
Yeah, I was like that with Halo 2 actually.
well, Halo 2 was even a like another one I wanted to talk about because Halo 2 changed like it's such a great sequel. In my opinion, I actually think Halo 2 is even better than Halo 1. Um, you were able to now
Yeah,
dual wield guns, which was so cool. Never saw that before.
you
Um,
can mix and match the dual wielding.
yeah, you can mix and match, and it was such a great design, and it was again a game that I would dream of having, but never could own it because I didn't have an Xbox. But all my friends had Xboxes, so I would always go over their house and play. We do that 4-player split screen. That was awesome. I mean, that was a great time. Xbox Live was a thing, but nobody around me had like internet or thought about hooking their console up to the internet. So no one ever talked about Xbox Live, personally for me. Um, so I never saw the point of it, but at least back then.
Xbox Live, Xbox Live plus Halo 2 is what really made me want to get the Xbox because I had the GameCube. I was always into like the Nintendo side of things, but because of I remember experiencing tank pits and liking the idea of like fighting other people. I thought that was the most advanced form of game.
So yeah, I mean, for me, Halo was just, I mean, it was such a game changer because, that was like the hardcore. Like if you were a hardcore gamer, you played Halo. That's how you could tell them apart because they were always, they're actually paying for a subscription on the internet, like to play over online. Which PC players were obviously doing that too with World of Warcraft and other games. But if you're paying a subscription, like you're hardcore, you're a hardcore gamer, at least at that time. GK, are you back? I think I hear you.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Oh yeah, no problem.
Minor distraction. I lost my train of thought.
Well, you were talking about Halo and Halo 2, Xbox Live.
Oh, yeah. I thought that was like the most advanced form of gaming, but Halo, Xbox Live was like out of my reach at the time. We just did not have the internet for it.
Yeah,
we had freaking dial up. So
I
only ever really experienced Xbox Live at like other people's houses or cousins. They had it, and like we played that a bunch. But I only got Xbox Live like into the 360 era, but I was always very envious of it. But I still loved the story, the single player of Halo 2. That was the game that got me an Xbox. And from there, I eventually did get a couple of other Xbox games. Another one I was super into was the Hitman Blood Money, and I did not. I was basically one of those things where I went to the game store and they're like, yeah, like, you know what, let's find a game, and we'll get it for you. And I really didn't have an idea of what game I want. And I saw this game called Hitman. I knew nothing about it. I thought it was just like an action game. So I got Hitman, and then I learned, like, I didn't play the game correctly for a while, but eventually I learned it was all about stealth. That I eventually got super into the idea of like a stealth game because of that.
That's a different concept. Stealth wasn't even really like a thing, back then. And nobody wanted to do stealth. It was like guns blazing, Yeah. That wasn't an exclusive to Xbox though, right? Was it?
No, it wasn't. It was multi-platform. Well, the first I had Hitman Blood Money. That was like the fourth in the series. I didn't even know that at the time. But the first one I think was PC. I don't know if it came out to any other consoles, but it was mainly a PC game at first. And I think 2 and 3 came out. I know on Xbox and well, I don't know if they came out. I know they came out on the PlayStation. I know Blood Money I got on the Xbox. I'm pretty sure. So that was a game I played thoroughly as well. Playing every level, going over it. So and beyond that, also another game. Well, this one was actually a GameCube game I really liked. Was it was Simpsons Hit and Run, which is fondly remembered now. At the time, people wrote it off. Oh, licensed game. It was at the time where people started to figure out that licensed games were garbage and not good. And that one, I just remember, like, it was actually funny. Like, it was a persistent episode. It was the first, well, not the first, but it was a game I played for the writing and the interaction. I wasn't super into the driving, but it was still cool unlocking all the cars because there was a lot of cars you can unlock with different stats. And that was also a collectathon kind of game. I got into the collection on that one as well. And that was one that at the time it was wrote off, but I think is more fondly remembered now.
Actually, I have a story about that too, but I want to ping Dirty Dan's comment here about the Dreamcast controller being a behemoth.
Go ahead and do that.
I actually tried. It's not working, it seems.
Oh yeah, sorry. I thought I clicked on it by accident. That
was the Dreamcast controller being a behemoth. Yeah, you think that's a behemoth? Did you see the original Xbox controller, the Duke? Yeah, that thing is nuts. I mean,
it did not even have shoulder buttons. You remember had the white and black,
the black and
side
white.
Button?
Yeah, I don't know what they were trying to do there, but
shoulders were the better option.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I mean, that was funny. But anyway, yeah, I want to talk about the Simpsons game Hit and Run. So for me as a kid, I was not able to get rated M games. So Grand Theft Auto, that was out of the picture. So you always had to find a clone of Grand Theft Auto that was rated T or lower, and that was Hit and Run.
They were never that good.
No, they were never.
Yeah, actually, Hit and Run was the best that you could afford for the GTA style.
Yeah. So for me, hit and run, although my parents did not like The Simpsons, so they said I couldn't get that one either. But that one, at least I'd play all over my friends' houses, and that was really great to see. But I mean, that also is similar to the Halo situation, right? Halo is rated M, and there was no other like first person shooters, like good ones, on what I had the PlayStation 2. So there was no other like good ones that were rated T or lower. There was Call of Duty, which was always World War II based, World War One, World War Two,
I think
which
all shooting
eventually,
games got M by default.
yeah, exactly. I remember one that I thought was pretty good was, it was called Black. Um,
Oh, I remember that. They
yeah,
advertised it with
G4 TV.
destruction, like
Yeah,
environmental destruction. I
yeah,
never
G4
played it though. I
TV
just
used
remember
to.
the advertisement.
Yeah, G4 TV used to advertise for it a lot, but that was rated M, so it was out of the question. So there was not a lot of good first person shooters like that I was able to play as a kid. Which that's a big difference today. Today, I think there's a lot more you can play, but that's
Yeah,
why
I
Halo
was
just
always
looks
into
so
shooting.
great to me.
I'm kind of glad that my parents really didn't give a crap about
Mm,
that. It was always about the economics of it. Like, hey, another console, please. Another $60 game. No. Well, you can go to the game
yeah.
store and find a bargain bin game, and they didn't care about the rating. And I did rent. Oh, that was another big thing was renting games. We
Mm,
did that a lot too. I rented Grand Theft Auto. I never owned it, but I rented it like several times over. Played through the story at least for uh not Grand Theft. It was
San Andreas,
no,
Vice City.
I never finished it. I rented San Andreas. I never finished the story. I finished the story for Vice City. I remember, uh,
Mm,
and and at that time I had already seen Scarface, and I just thought, is this supposed to be a Scarface game? They just changed the names because it was. I mean, it was very inspired, like
yeah, yeah.
the attack in the mansion. But that aside, and I can also remember and I was always like the idea of PC gaming was like out of the question. Like I knew
Mm,
of it. I just knew it was like very like you had to know what you were doing.
yeah.
And but when it got a little bit easier, and I remember watching I think it was either XPlay or game trailers. I saw a review of a little game, and I don't know if I ever brought this up to you, called Stalker. Uh,
Huh. Never heard of it. No, I'm just kidding.
of course you have. But anyway, I saw the review of it, and I just thought the idea looked amazing. They talked about how it was like an open world, not so much like an RPG, but you actually had to explore the world and like um maintain your equipment, your guns, your health. Like if you got shot, you bled, so you had to bandage it. You can
Mm,
get poison, so you need antidote. You get radiation sickness, so you need to take care of that. And I just thought this game sounds so advanced. I
mm,
really want to play it. And then I looked it up and it was like PC only. And I was extremely envious of this game for years. This was the game that got me into like wanted me to get into PC gaming. It's one of the first games I got when I became a PC gamer for the first time. A Stalker Call of Pripyat in particular. But it was just I remember back then there wasn't even good like gameplay footage on YouTube, no review, like people doing like
yeah.
let's plays. That wasn't really much of a thing for obscure. I mean, there was major games that got let's plays, but not a game like Stalker. I remember it was like random clips of like random things, and it was not satisfying. I would watch review like the gaming publication reviews, game trailers, and XPlay. I would watch
Mm,
those a few times over. I I also found like one of the earliest like game exclusive wikis. I read through like a bunch of the wikis, the wiki pages for Stalker, and I was just so amazed at like how advanced, how big the game was, like how many different weapons. It blew my mind that there was like over 50 weapons, and I just thought, oh wait, you usually get the shotgun or the rifle or the sniper, but there was variants of all
mm,
guns, and I just thought that was so amazing.
yeah.
I don't know if you had that kind of experience,
For
like you
for
talked a bit about
me,
looking on Envy with Halo,
well, I
but
had that
I
exact
don't know if
same
you ever
envy
got
with
into the
Halo.
PC gaming.
Well, for PC, I remember the very first time my cousin had a Alienware computer, which I thought PC gaming you had to have an Alienware computer. That was it. Like
Yeah, that
they
tricked you
were,
for like the kids who
yeah,
didn't know any better.
right. I mean, because nobody knew anything about PCs around me. So it wasn't really talked about. But for me, I remember in 2008, I saw a game called Crisis. That game, it was like, wow, I need to
You
get a
still
PC. This
can't
is
play it to this
gorgeous.
day with a
Yeah,
normal rig.
You still to this day. I mean, it's hard. It's
It was
so
a
hard to play
glorified
that game.
tech demo.
Yeah, yeah, but I mean, I have to say, it was gorgeous. It was a gorgeous game.
Yeah, that was another game. I looked at that one similar to Stalker, but I lost interest because at that point, like, I played other games and
yeah,
but
yeah,
yeah, the transitioning to PC was a tough transition to make. My first gaming console was like a few $100 laptop, which was not really able to do it. I got my Steam account, but and I mostly transitioned to PC not only because I wanted that game, but because all of my online gaming buddies
Mm.
at the time were transitioning to PC as well. And I guess I'll piggyback a little bit with, like, the first game I played super competitively, the first game I actually got legitimately good at was Left 4 Dead. I loved the idea of Left 4 Dead, and I was playing it, and then I randomly came across people who also committed to playing Left 4 Dead and only Left 4 Dead. We were playing it, and we got so good, like, we would constantly win. And then we discovered game battles. And this is like a whole nother topic, but we actually participated in organized like competitions, or not competitions, but it was game battles. Like, if you know game battles,
that
like,
was
you
a
fight people,
site where you could do competition,
competitive.
right? Yeah, competitive.
Yeah, well,
gameplay.
yeah, it was
I
like
remember,
competitive.
yeah.
Like, there was like stats, like win-loss ratios.
Mhm.
The top teams would be on the top, and you want to move up.
Yep.
And it wasn't the most popular competitive game, but it was the one that we got good at. We used to be so good, like, we never lost against random players, but random players was not a challenge. Then we got into the competitive sphere. We got our asses beat, and we were like thrown for a loop. But eventually, we learned, we adapted, and we actually got good. We actually practiced like setups. I remember this, like, setups for, like, how when you're the zombie side, you attack people in a coordinated fashion at choke points. I mean, I can talk a lot about that, but we played a lot of Left 4 Dead and Left 4 Dead 2 when that eventually came out. My gaming friends who were competitive in Left 4 Dead transitioned to PC, so I transitioned with them to play Left 4 Dead on PC and, various other games. Got into TF2 a little bit, kind of casually. But yeah, and do you have any?
They had
games
Left 4
similar
Dead
stories
on
to that?
the 360. You never played it on there?
No, I did. That's where I played it
okay.
initially. But then
okay,
we
okay.
transitioned to PC because my friends
Gotcha.
did, and we were told, "Oh yeah, PC is the more advanced console. You can do a lot more." How you doing, Nanu? By the way, feel free to share your stories. We might do call-ins later if anyone has anything they like to share. But yeah, so my first experience with PC. So what? Do you have any early experience with PC gaming?
I transitioned to PC in 2014. For me, it was actually because the two new consoles had come out, Xbox One and PS4, and both of them, I actually had both, and they both sucked. At least back then, in the very beginning, I didn't realize how bad it was going to be. It was bad. I remember, I think for the PS4, there was a total of 7 games in the first year. It was bad. And most
I
of them
remember there
were
was a song.
multi-platform. So I said, this is a waste of time. So I said, and there was no backwards compatibility of any kind. So it's like you had to have both consoles. You had to have the PS4 and the PS3 and the Xbox One and the 360. And I said, this is just terrible. I don't want to do this anymore. So my brother said, switch to PC, better graphics. Games are a lot cheaper because at the time Steam was running like these new sales, which were out of the
Well, they
water.
continue
Great.
to this day.
They continue to this
They
day.
made
I'm saying
PC.
it was like new at the time. It was like, what?
If
How
you
are
pay
getting
for
this
all these
game?
games, the games pay for, like, the cheaper games would eventually cover the cost of the PC. Well, somewhat, not really, but close.
Yeah, and
That's how you justify it in your head.
this is how much I was like scared to get a PC. I asked my brother. I was like, "Is there controller support? Can I use my controller?" Because I intended on using the PC.
Yeah, but you don't want
console.
to.
Well, originally I intended on using the PC as a console. I was gonna like get my games and then just use controller. That was it. And eventually I realized that mouse and keyboard was the better option. I got super competitive.
It took a long time to get good at it.
Yeah,
I struggled to transition.
Yeah, it really.
But now
struggled.
I can't go back to controller for first-person shooter.
I actually just beat Call of Duty 4 on Xbox 360, and let me tell you, I struggled really hard with that joystick. It was so hard. But yeah, no, as soon as I got the PC, I started playing some new games, opening up my horizons. I remember I got super into Counter-Strike. That game was so much fun. I was one of the highest ranks at the time, which was I think Eagle. I forget the name of it.
Oh, I remember they introduced prestiging, and
Yeah,
that bummed me out. Like you
they
had to play the game
changed
even
they changed the
longer.
ranking system on that one. I think it was Grand Eagle or something. I was very high up there, which was awesome. Um, but then I started getting to a game called League of Legends. Don't ever play that one. You'll
Yeah.
lose. Yeah, you'll lose the rest of your life. Um, hello, Emo Lord. Thank you. Good afternoon. Um, yeah, but let me tell you, the PC was a great. It was far better in my opinion because I mean the better graphics, better connected, and you don't have to pay for your subscription to go online. I mean
Well, you had to
that's
pay for the good internet and the computer itself.
yeah.
But see, that was like another thing to justify because the Xbox and the PlayStation had subscription fees, and there was
Yeah.
nothing on the real. Well, there was virtually nothing reasonable on the GameCube to play online.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, so it's like, oh, you just play online is a default because you have the PC and the internet access.
Right.
And
Right.
Steam organized it. I remember I heard stories. I didn't experience. I never PC game before Steam, but I heard it was more convoluted where you had to buy an actual physical disc, or download from a website, and you'd have just like you would either have the game start icons all over your desktop, or you'd have a folder that was just full of them, and it
Yeah.
was kind of hard to organize them. But Steam organized things quite nicely and with persistent sales. I think
Mhm.
games rarely went on sale before Steam.
Well, Steam brought it to a centralized place. I mean, before that,
Yeah,
you had Windows games for Windows. That was terrible. You had something called GameSpy, which was also terrible. Um, there was a few of them, and it was like they're all over the place. And even today, it's starting to become that again, right? You have
yeah.
Origin,
Now
you
actually
have
more coming
Epic
out
Games.
to
Yeah,
decentralize,
yeah, which is
which
annoying. Like,
can be mostly a good thing for competition's sake.
oh
But
yeah, yeah.
it's going to be like the Netflix thing where I used to get everything in one place. Now other people are pulling their games
Mhm.
and putting them on these other platforms. I like Hitman, but the newest Hitman is exclusively on the Epic Game Store, at least for a while, and
That's annoying.
I don't want to deal with that separate launcher. I
Right,
don't.
right,
I'm
right.
waiting for
That's
it to
annoying.
eventually come to Steam.
I actually like Epic Games. They give a free game out every single week. They
Yeah,
have a very nice
they're sort of
store.
pulling their weight.
Yeah, yeah, theirs is really nice. But like Origin, I hate Origin. Or Ubisoft's version, I hate it. Well, I don't want to have to go through that. It's kind of annoying. It's great for competition, but that is kind of annoying. We're going back into
Well, there needs to be
that
good
old.
competition.
Yeah.
So far, Steam is still far and ahead the best. But
Yeah.
Epic Games Store is starting to catch up a bit.
I think Epic Games is pretty good. They had the exclusive rights to Kingdom Hearts for a while.
Mm,
They have a bunch of exclusives too, which is just like it's good for them. But um, yeah, I mean, PC is definitely the better option though.
yeah. And then I started to get very heavy in the PC gaming realm, and I remember like the first truly unique PC gaming experience, which was just I mean, Stalker was like one of those games that just couldn't be done on a console, and there was a lot of
Mhm.
games, but the first like super different weird thing that I thought was even more amazing than Stalker was DayZ, which not the flower, but DayZ, day and then the letter Z. I'm sure a lot of people remember that game, and I actually streamed that long, long ago, and I'm glad those VODs are gone because my stream was utter shit looking back then, and my computer couldn't handle the game, let alone streaming it. But DayZ was like you explain the concept to people, and it was just like you're in a massive map, you want to loot, you want to survive, you need food, you need drinks. And if you find another player, you can either try to meet as equals or fight for the loot. And it's just one of those games where you just make stories, you make it up as you go. And I remember getting into that game extremely early to the point where like installing that game was a nightmare. It
Yeah.
was the most annoying game to get running. You needed not only did you need the base game because Daisy was a mod of Arma, you needed a DLC for Arma, and you needed a very particular version, and for both the base game and the DLC, and you'd get endless error messages. There's a lot of background noise, by the way. I don't know if you're able to.
Oh yeah.
No.
It's over now. Yeah. Sorry, that was my mom. Um,
But yeah, anyway, but yeah, DayZ was like, we got into that pretty early. The game just blew up like crazy. And me and my crew, we got into that game trying to find loot, trying to find vehicles. We have like a lot of stories of like early stumblings. And at that time, that game was like you meet people whether or not they were enemies you never really knew. But that game eventually it turned into kill on KOS, we called it at the time, kill on sight, turned into a big like basically glorified death match. To I don't know if I would say to my shame, but early on, me and my crew, we were committed bandits. Like we would find people, we would sometimes lure people in, we would shoot them in the back when they weren't looking, take their shit. If we saw a new player who didn't have any good loot, we kill them anyway and then leave just because that's just how we rolled. Um, but yeah, it was an amazing experience, which would eventually turn into something else. But do you recall?
Well,
Yeah,
yeah,
me showing you
actually,
Daisy and all that.
GK, when I first met you, you were obsessed with Daisy, and you had showed it to me, and I was like, "This is a wild concept." It was different, right? It was so different because uh, I remember my very first like online multiplayer game. It was Call of Duty 4. That's to this day is actually my favorite game of all time. Um, but that game was my first introduction into, hey, this is an online community. It has a huge following, and it was basically the same thing. I mean, that game really changed the first person shooter genre because it introduced like perks and things we hadn't seen before. But everything copied that, and then it stayed the same for years to come. It was just person shoot person or person play with other person. It was just like that's all it was, right?
The
But then
team capture the
Daisy,
flag.
yeah, capture the flag, different game modes, but it was really the same thing. Daisy was the first game that I saw that made it like open world. It was like, wow,
Make your own
this
story. Make
this
your own
is what like
teams.
yeah, this is like what Red Dead Redemption should have been, the online portion anyway.
Oh
Um,
yeah, I
you
never
know,
really
and
played that much.
an open world concept that it was such a great like idea. I at the time I thought servers were limited to a certain amount of people because you never saw servers bigger than 30, right? um I think even Battlefield had a limit of, I think it was somewhere around there, 30 or 40 people.
Actually,
Call
Daisy had like at most 50 or experimental
Well,
150
yeah, so
servers.
it was a little bit bigger, but it was really the open world
It was
concept
a
that
huge map though.
yeah, that obviously um brought attention to companies that made Fortnite and other games like that, PUBG, right? Um, that's I think the game that kind of brought those ideas into play. And I know that you had wanted to talk about one of those games.
Yeah. Well, to sort of yeah, transition to that PUBG, but also when Daisy came out, people praised it for being a unique shooter game because at the time shooters were like super oversaturated. Um, but Daisy came out and there was a couple of Daisy ripoffs. I remember the big one was War Z, not World War Z, but there was a game
Yeah.
called War Z which turned out to be utter garbage, and basically the guy who made the game was like running a scam. That's like a big complicated story. If anyone knows who Total Biscuit is, he sort of went over that game. May he rest in peace due to cancer, unfortunately. But besides that, there was a lot of rip-off games. None of them really any good that I can recall. H1Z1 almost was, but H1Z1 and DayZ um had or transitioned into a new mode that became super popular to this day. They and this was like right around when the Hunger Games came out. Someone made a mod of DayZ, which is funny because it was already a mod, but it was the Hunger Games. Like there was a limited number of people. People actually had to check a schedule for when the server started, so people had to like wait, and it was a nightmare. It wasn't that popular at first, but we had to wait for the server to go online, and you basically only had one shot to play the game, so the game was intense. Like if you died early, that was it. You couldn't go back into a game. You couldn't requeue. But everyone launched into the server. Everyone spawned into the center. They did not do the plane thing. They did cornucopia, where everyone started at the very beginning, with backpacks that had random loot, and at best you might find a handgun or two. So everyone would either make a mad dash, grab a backpack, look through it for a weapon, or just run away. So there was just a big fight in the early game where people would just like a couple people would die early. So it was the first battle royale. I think it was called Battle Royale when it first came out, which hence the new genre. The creator of that mod would eventually go to create PUBG, one of the earliest example of the Battle Royale genre. I don't think it's the most popular anymore. I think Fortnite really took that concept and ran away with it. But
So
DayZ,
do you think DayZ
world,
started it?
Hmm?
Do you think
Well, yeah,
DayZ
it
that guy
started it
started
indirectly. It started with the open world, but it wasn't as accessible. Not everyone got into it. But then from that came the battle royale genre, and that blew up because even if you were bad, you just go into a game, you requeue, you try again. Occasionally, you get far into the game. And so yeah, the battle royale genre is a child of what DayZ was.
Mm.
PUBG, the first big one, and now there's a whole bunch that are out now. Some better than others. My favorite is one we could probably talk about a little later. Totally Accurate Battlegrounds. Put that aside, but yeah, do you remember getting into either Fortnite and or PUBG or other battle royales?
For me, it was Fortnite. I remember in 2017, my friend had said, "Hey, there's this new beta of this game called Fortnite. You should check it out." And so we all got into the game, and wow, what a blast! Because I had never played anything like that before. I tried to get into DayZ when you had showed it to me, and I could not do it because it was a really hard installation process. It was not easy to.
And the game itself, like, it was a learning curve.
There was a learning curve on it.
You weren't as hardcore.
Yeah, yeah. And for me, in 2017 when I tried the beta of Fortnite, wow, just it was so fun. So I always stuck with that one. I didn't realize there was even competitors. I didn't realize PUBG was a thing. I didn't realize at the time there was actually one made by, I think it was Epic. It was called like Paradigm or something like that.
I don't recall.
I had played that one too. I remember it not being as good, and it eventually that got canceled. That was a beta as well. That got canceled. But yeah, I've been with Fortnite since the very beginning, and I've seen all the changes that they've made and how it's really changed over time. That game started as something super basic. You started out with just a pickaxe, and you could either get, they had two of every weapon. So you had two pistols, two machine guns, two rifles, two snipers, that sort of thing. It was basic, and it was fun because it was basic. And then eventually they would just add so much stuff. Like this past season, they had UFOs and plasma guns events. And all this. Yeah, events, all these crazy things, and it's spiraled into this whole other thing that it's not anything like what it used to be. I played a lot of Fortnite over the years, and I don't like what it's become, but it's definitely it's gone into the direction of what sells because they've catered their audience to kids and
the battle passes. I don't know if it was the first game with a battle pass, but it popularized it.
It definitely popularized it. I know Call of Duty has been doing it for a long time. Battle passes are
Call of Duty has Warzone now. That's
yeah. The battle passes really piss me off. Those are like
now that's the thing though. That's like the new game mode that'll probably be a part of almost every game is the battle royale game.
Well, yeah,
if it's a shooter, why not just make a battle royale game? It's like honestly kind of simple. Almost
Call of Duty made one.
Deathmatch.
Yeah, Counter-Strike even made one. I mean, that one was pretty pathetic. That one I always thought was so boring.
Yeah. That was weird.
Yeah. I mean, everybody's got one now. It's like, I don't know. Some people shouldn't be making
oversaturated.
Oversaturated.
I feel like I just feel like if someone can make a good game concept or just a good shooter, because I never got into Fortnite. I was into PUBG at first because I liked the gunplay of PUBG. I did not like the gunplay of Fortnite. It seemed very the third person shooting in general. I never got into. I never really played Gears of War, so I never got into third person shooting. And I hated the building mechanic. It was like an extra thing I had to learn. I was never good at it. Yeah. And if I played with a team of people, I would tell them, "Okay, I'll give you all my supplies. You guys build. I will just try to shoot and keep an eye out and cover." Yeah. But that really wasn't viable because everyone, if you want to be good, everyone needed to be good at building, make their own barricades at a whim. And I hated that when you shoot at someone who was out of cover, they can just make cover. And I liked that risk of like running to a different vantage point and then risk being out of cover, like in PUBG or other BR games.
Yeah, it's more realistic. Yeah.
Yeah, realistic. Yeah, well, you know what I mean. Just it was a little bit more risk reward. The building
Yeah.
shit in Fortnite, I just never got it. I get the appeal, and
Mhm.
the kids who play it get crazy good at it sometimes. Like watching good gameplay of Fortnite can be mesmerizing.
Yeah. When
But
they build so
yeah,
fast, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've played my fair share of like Warzone and Apex Legends. They're fun, they're definitely fun, but it's just oversaturated. I am done to death with those stupid that genre. And it's the same thing with zombies. Zombies has been so overdone that to
Oh
me it's
yeah,
like I don't think
horde
I can do it
mode.
anymore. Yeah, or horde mode. That was the one
That was
before
big during
Battle
the
Royale. Yeah.
the what's this called, the Gears of War popularized horde mode, which
Yeah.
often got combined with zombies.
Everybody had a horde mode as well. That
Oh,
also.
oh
Even Call of Duty did
shoot!
a
I
horde
forgot.
mode.
Yeah, and I guess I forgot to mention before I became a PC gamer, the Xbox I owned when I talked about Left 4 Dead. I actually forgot the game that got me to really get into the Xbox 360 was Dead Rising. I thought that was
Mm.
amazing, like the huge mall and you're in like zombie and there was like a
Yep.
story behind it. That I mean that game was like kind of goofy, arcadey, but
Yeah.
I always liked zombies, the
You
zombie genre.
you actually, yeah, you had gotten me into Dead Rising, and
We played the co-op for Dead Rising too.
yeah, yeah. And I always said to you, I said,
My
why
console
can't
red ringed when we tried.
I remember I always said, why can't there be a game like Dead Rising but multiplayer? Like as in like
Yeah,
against other
Daisy.
people.
That's what
Daisy.
Daisy
Yep.
eventually came about.
Yep.
See,
Daisy.
that
So
that was cool. Yeah, we sort of got off on a tangent there. So I
yeah.
guess I don't know if you have anything else to add with that like later stage like a BR before I try to open up to if anyone wants to call in.
Um Yeah, I mean, for me, another game that kind of has shaped me, I mean, I talk about it often enough, is League of Legends, just really that MOBA
Ugh.
genre. Um
Ew.
it's just a different gameplay style, It's a completely different style and it was refreshing at first. Now I'm kind of I don't know, kind of sick of it, but I have to play it every day cuz it's just so addicting, but um it's it's a different style of gameplay. So got to give my hat off to that game. When it works well, but
Yeah, I mean,
just
occasionally
something
we get
different.
that game we play on a regular basis. I never got into League. I mean,
Mhm.
it has some funny jokes, like about it. That and Hearthstone. Hearthstone is a different kind of game though.
Yeah, yeah,
One
yeah.
v one card battling. But for me, I really like Fall Guys. That's the game I initially played on the regular. I don't play it like every day anymore, but I do play that one frequently. I am the one. This is the game that I'm keeping up with the battle. The battle passes are free in that game, but that's the one where every time there's a new one, I make sure to complete it. I try to do all the extra stuff because that's like my main. Like it's. I don't know if you would consider that a BR. It's a mini game. Like well, elimination game. Like what? Like white the. It's Wipeout, but a video game.
Mm.
A little bit of Mario Party inspiration and all that, but yeah, and I guess if we want to go on tangents about like more recent games that are relevant to us now, if anyone wants to consider calling in, just join that link. I can screen you and just make sure your mic is working. If you want to talk about anything, either your childhood games, games that made you buy a console, anything we sort of talked about, or if you want to give a summary of like it all,
Yeah, give us
feel
even in the
free. Or if you
chat.
just want to chat,
Yeah,
it in about it too, and that's fine as well.
let us know what
Anyway,
game shaped you or what your favorite game is. Anything, games
yeah.
from your childhood, anything at all.
And I guess I'll while we're waiting to see if anyone wants to take us up on that, games that are sort of shaping me currently ever since I got into streaming. I've always loved Mario Party. I just never had a chance to play that with an actual group of people. When I started streaming playing Smash, and when I was researching and when I was streaming early, playing Mario Party online was possible but very cumbersome. Um, so I sort of like waited to see if that would become better eventually. But I got played party games a lot of Smash. But eventually, I figured out or started to get Mario Party online to work. So at that point, I started to, and it was hard at first getting people to get everything they needed to actually play it. And it, but I remember our first game. I actually got Wolf in on our first game of Mario Party Online with struggling to remember. I think it was Ness and Ty, two people I know.
Mhm.
But yeah, like we got the first game in and it was hard, but now I'm at the point where I can do that regularly, and now I can enjoy the party games I never did growing up, you know? So that was so streaming sort of changed like what kind of games I can play because I have more options now because I have like a good community to play these kind of communal games with.
Yeah, I think there's like a newer genre of like community games, which has given a breath of fresh air to games like Mario Party, or even that Jackbox series that you've shown me.
Jackbox games,
Yeah,
yes,
like
the great streamer game.
yeah, it makes like a community style game, which is just a really cool concept of getting your viewers involved and things like that. Yeah, I really like what you do with like Mario Party things. Jackbox. I don't know if you've done any Jackbox streaming here,
I
but
haven't done Jackbox in a while. There
yeah,
was a new Jackbox that actually came out. I have to look into. I
okay,
typically wait on the Jackbox games if there's like a sale. I don't know if this new box. I actually haven't checked this new pack, if it has like any really good games or anything like that. But that one is just, I don't know. There's always the risk of people coming in and spoiling the fun,
right,
And I just got more used to the some games with some kind of competitive element to it. I mean, there is competitive elements to Jackbox, but it's a little bit more casual. I mean, it's
yeah,
fun to be had, sure. But Mario Party, I really like just because it was an actual time investment to like really push for a win. Like you fought like three other people and there was only one winner. And there was like there was sort of like politics in the game where, hey, like don't attack me, attack this other person. And I've always really liked that. And I felt like Mario Party struck a chord, like the perfect kind of game, like for me anyway. Some people don't like the longer games. I dig them, and I'm glad that there's a new Mario Party coming out, and I hope it's good, and they continually support it with DLC. I'm gonna be playing that a lot when it
well,
comes out, which it is coming out the 29th.
I've heard you say that before. Is there such thing as a bad Mario Party game?
I wouldn't say like, well, there's like Mario Party E, but it's like one of those games that is like weird. And of the main series, all the Mario Party games are pretty playable. The later Mario Parties, like 9 and 10, that you can't even really do because they were like the Wii and Wii U. They were like they made dumb decisions with the car. I wouldn't say that they're like bad. It's just not for me. I felt like they took out a lot of the
Mhm.
strategy. Some people are fond with them because that's the one that they played, they grew up with. But Mario Party is like 1 through 8. I think there is some variation on which ones are better or worse, but they are all of like the same quality standard, I would
What
say. Like
what's the
I
one on
think
the
Mario Party
Switch?
4. The one on the Switch is Super Mario Party actually. That one I would say is of a lower tier because it
Hmm.
is a lot of problems with that game. There was no good online until recent. Well, there's no good online now, but there was no online at all until recently, and the online is not even that good. If anyone disconnects, the game is dead. The
Huh.
emulators now save every turn, so if someone disconnects, you reconnect and you continue the game. The new
Hmm.
Mario Party is going to let you do that. You're going to be able to save, which is great. And so that's not going to be an issue anymore. But again, I hope they back it up with like continued support because all the Mario Party games only had like a handful of boards, averaging like 6 or 7. Some more, some less. Like Super Mario Party only had 4, which is pathetic. This new Mario Party Superstars, is starting with 5, and
Okay.
there might be a hidden one you can unlock, but I hope they add more because if it's 5 or 6, that's just basically barely above standard, in my opinion.
Hmm.
And in terms of like other Mario parties not being as good, like I dislike Mario Party 4, but it's still perfectly fine, perfectly playable. There's just some things that I just don't think are as good as the others.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean that's a game that's like I feel like it's always kept to its core. They change some mini games, they change some maps, they change some things. It's always kept to the core, which I kind of like.
Yeah.
I think that's a lot of problem. That's the problem with a lot of games today is that they make so many sequels that they really don't keep to their core. They change over time. You know what I mean? So
Changed too much.
yeah, yeah. Like what I was just saying about Fortnite. Fortnite has changed so much that it's not even the same game anymore. Like yeah, the basics are there, but it's not even remotely
Was
similar.
they add a lot of bells and whistles? I mean, I am not into
Yeah.
Fortnite, so I don't know how much they changed it.
Yeah, I mean, it used to just be a basic game, person shoot person. There's some building involved. Now there's so many different things you can do with. I mean, now there's fishing. There's ways to instantly heal yourself. There's UFOs, which there's cars, right? That was never in the game.
Oh,
Um,
vehicles? Oh
yeah,
yeah.
vehicles. There was airplanes for a while. There for a while there was this rocket launcher that instantly targeted you. It was like homing. That I'm not sure why they ever did that. Yeah, it's just they add a bunch of stuff and it breaks the game. So
Yeah, when games get a lot more complicated than they used to be.
yeah,
This is why I like Fall Guys. Fall Guys honestly is to its core. They're just adding mini games and game variations, but they still have the main game mode of you play through a couple mini games. If you don't qualify, you get knocked out, and there's only one
mm,
winner. Whether or not you like a particular mini game is, subjective, but the game is as it should be. Like, you have your mini games and you progress. If you want to play this goofy bonus mode, you can. They're always temporary, they cycle in and out. You can have your cosmetics, they don't really affect anything. They don't introduce new weapons because there really isn't. And I feel like Fall Guys has a good thing going. It had a rough start when it opened, but it's pretty good. And I guess another game I want to talk about, the best VR game in the world, Totally Accurate Battlegrounds. This game came out like 2 or 3 years ago. I think 3 years ago. And this is a game that also changed, but this is one that actually changed fundamental things, but for the better for the most part. It started as a parody of battle royale games, and the developers honestly didn't think it would blow up or become that popular, but it did. The developers said that they were going to concentrate on the real games first, and then they would go back to Totally Arca Battlegrounds when they have time, when they're done with their other games. So they did, and this was like within the last year. The game became free to play. It used to cost $5, um, but it became free to play. I remember when I showed you the game at first, and I told you that this was the Fortnite killer. 3 years later, it might actually become the Fortnite killer. So initially, that game was very basic. It had a couple of weapons. It actually had joke weapons, melee weapons, which melee is actually viable in Total Accurate Battlegrounds because the game is physics based. If you rush someone with a melee weapon, you push their gun aside and you can actually kill them. But that game also had the standard armor, health, and all that. And for some reason, there was no cap. You can like literally pick up every item in the whole map. But recently, they changed a couple things. They added an items cap, so you actually had to think about what you're picking up. That's fine. They balanced the weapons a little better, so that's not major. They added a couple, nothing major. They changed the map. The old map I did like, but there was not much going on. The new map is more dense with a lot more landmarks. And because it's a goofy game, they have a lot of crazy landmarks that wouldn't work in like a game like Fortnite or PUBG. They also removed armor and strictly because the armor disrupted your cosmetics. So they got rid of the armor. It was only your health. People didn't like this at first because everyone thought they were dying too easily. They eventually added a thing called blessings. Blessings are basically perks, but they're items you pick up in game. So it's not like a perk your loadout when you start the game. You actually got to find these, and then so the perks you find in one game may be totally different from the next game. So you actually had a different experience every time you played. Some of the perks allowed you to take more damage, or regenerate your health, so you were able to take more punishment. Some perks made you more mobile, faster, jump higher. Other ones affected how like you had better weapon handling. A lot of different combinations. One that lets you heal when you cause damage, so that's how you can keep taking punishment. And I think now, Totally Accurate Battlegrounds is a viable game. It is free to play. I'd recommend people to try it out because
oh,
it's
they
a lot
did
of
switch to free to
fun.
play on that, huh?
What was that?
They did switch to free to play on that one.
It's free to play, yeah.
Oh, okay. For a while, yeah, I remember it was not
It
free
was
to
five
play.
bucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was $5.
Um, yeah, that game I haven't played it since 2018, so I'm sure it's changed a lot. I'll have to give it another try. I thought it was terrible when I played it back then, but if it's
No,
changed so
that's
much,
right.
I'm willing to
It,
give
it,
it
it
one more
keeps the
chance.
physics. It keeps the important aspect of the physics. You know, like how the character you play in most games, the gun of your character is separate from the gun in the world and your character model. But this is like your character is as it spawns in the world, and your guns can sometimes get stuck behind your arm, stuck under your leg, and all that, and you have to like fix that. You have to like switch your weapons to fix it because that could affect it. If you're like trying to shoot in the woods and you brush up against a tree, your gun can get stuck on the tree. And I thought that was very funny, as well as what I mentioned before about the melee weapons.
I
You
mean,
can, if you rush someone, you can push their gun aside, or if you
that's
shoot someone before they shoot you, they lose their aim.
yeah, that part I can agree with. But like, if you're brushing up against a tree and your arm goes like on the gets stuck on the tree, that to me is a glitch, not a
No, that's
feature.
that's a feature. That's part of it, because when it happens to you, it may be frustrating, but it's funny when you see it happen to someone else and you have an opportunity to line up a perfect shot.
I
And they
suppose. I
have a great
suppose.
variety of weapons too, like normal weapons like M16s and AKs, but they also have muskets, crossbows. They even have super rare joke weapons. Like a gun which barrel just loops back towards your own face, so you can guess what that gun does to you. They even have rare game modes, like when you play, instead of just a normal everyone survives, it's like there's nothing but snipers, or there's nothing but shotguns, or there's nothing but spell books. That's another weapon type, is a spell book, and they do different things. But they have like a lot of unique modes, and I that's like one of the games I like currently. So I don't. Do you have any? Anyway, the floor is open for anyone who wants to call in. If anyone wants to call in, let me know if you have any story or anecdote about games of your past, or even really games currently. Do you have any current anecdotes for games that are relevant to you?
Um, for me currently, I mean, I of course am sticking with the League of Legends that I always do, but for me currently, I'm actually on a old binge right now. I'm playing some nostalgic games from like the 2005 to 2010 era. Um, I'm just going
That's
back and
almost retro now.
yeah, I know it's crazy to think that's almost retro. To me, it feels like yesterday, but they are super retro. And I've started an Xbox 360 collection recently, and just building that up. The games are so cheap, so it's awesome, and there's a ton of great games on that console. So I'm just sticking to those. Um, some that I've never even heard of, I'm just like, hey, if I can pick it up for under $5, $10, why not? So yeah, I'm just kind of sticking with those. I mean, I'm looking at my games list here. I have Crackdown, Crackdown 2, um, Forza Horizon, Assassin's Creed, uh, Far Cry 3, Blood Dragon, Gears of War, Grand Theft Auto San Andreas, some Castlevania games, Resident Evil, Code Veronica. There's, there's just a ton of games that I've been kind of playing from that era. I think that, in my opinion, that's like one of the best eras of games because it's where they started to like really I don't know. They took like the
They
PS2
perfect the
Xbox era.
technology.
Yeah, they perfected it. Like if I was to compare these games to today's games, I feel like there's not like a big giant gap. You know what I mean? Like yeah, the graphics are a lot better today, but there's not like a massive gap in gameplay, I feel. So to me
Yeah,
this
I
will
think
always be like the glory days. I don't know.
yeah, I mean, for me, for the longest time, I felt like there just wasn't a major game I was into, other than like Smash for a while and Mario Party, of course. But that was like more of a retro binge. But it is coming back. Smash was a big game when I started streaming and actually got into it becoming more competitive. So that was relevant to me. I also play like a lot of like indie games on Steam. I got into the Binding of Isaac for a while. Went back in the old one when it was Flash, and then of course the new one. I sort of got burnt out on it, so I haven't played it as much. But there's always like a random indie game I like to play, like Deathrow to Canada is another one I kind of like. Let me see here. Door in the Woods was another good one I played a little bit of. But Pathologic 2, I think, was like one of the more dense games I played, and I struggle to finish that game. I have to try to finish it, but that was probably one of the most hardcore, difficult gaming experience was Pathologic. Uh, I recommend that. And I mentioned at the very beginning of the stream playing Litmus Gate, or how am I supposed to pronounce that game actually? Uh, Limnus Gate, I think.
Yeah.
Limnus Gate. Yeah. So that game, I talked about it before. How there's like you have to think about the timeline and all that. I'm hoping that this game becomes popular because I want to be good at it. I don't know if I will be. I'm getting into it early, so hopefully I can get good at it before everyone else. So when it becomes popular, a wave of really bad players I can just beat down very easily come about. You know, I hope. If you know, it's one of those things like a game that you want to become popular and you hope it does, but it may not. For me, a game that was like that was Guns of Icarus. I loved Guns of Icarus. I never really played that with a team, but I did play that on and off with random people. Guns of Icarus was a flotilla fighting game, or not a fighting game. Like you for a crew of 4 people would pilot a ship, and then they would have to fight other ships in various game modes. You had a captain who piloted the ship. You had engineers who maintained the ship so that it would not break down, and you had gunners who would, man the guns. And when, your ship got attacked, you kind of had to like balance things out to try to maintain the ship. Have you ever had that experience, a game you got really into that you hope became popular but never did?
For me, not as much really, because I know that you're really into like the indie games and that community. For me, I'm not so.
Oh, I think we lost him. Yeah, we'll give him a minute. Anyway, if I can like think of other games that were like that for me, Guns of Icarus was the big one for me. Shoot. Total Accurate Battlegrounds was almost like that. It dropped off initially before the developers came back to it. So that game, that game, it almost died off, but it's somewhat coming back now, and I hope it does. Fall Guys, people were worried that the game was gonna die. That when that game launched, it launched with very bare minimum amount of content. Not bare minimum, but not a lot of content. Where you got bored of the game pretty easily. That game was dependent on its mini games, and when you played it a few times, it got old. And oh, he's back.
Hey, GK, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I got this message. I sent it in Discord. Hopefully it doesn't happen again. It kind of kicked me out, but let's see if it happens again here.
Weird. I mean, I hear you now.
Well, hopefully it doesn't kick me out again. But anyway, yeah. So for me, I mean, I'm not like a big indie game player. There are some indie games that I've enjoyed, but I play more like the AAA games. So for me, all the games that I've ever played or wanted to play online, they always have a pretty strong community. So I don't really run into the issue of trying to find a game that doesn't have a community yet. You know what I mean?
Okay, so you got into the you chased the popular games.
One thing that's very hard for me to do is like, let's say there's a game I really love and I want to play it. Perfect example is Call of Duty 4. That's my favorite game of all time. If I want to play it today, it's so hard because nobody's online. That game, nobody's online anymore. That game on PC still has a little bit of a following. There's usually at least 100 people playing or so. But if I wanted to play it on console, forget it. I feel like you'd never find a game. And sometimes the servers are even closed on some of these games. There was a game, Skate. It's called Skate. It's a skateboarding game. I wanted to play it online.
The realistic Tony Hawk.
Yeah, realistic Tony Hawk. Exactly. You can't play it online anymore. The servers are closed. So you're just left in the dust. There's nothing you can do anymore.
All right. I don't know if you have any final thoughts. Again, I'm opening up last chance if anyone wants to call in to share their anecdotes. I mean, I'm sure if we really racked our brains, we could probably find a story we may have neglected. One topic I think we didn't really get into was games that we watch other people play but never played ourselves. But meant something to us to some degree.
Hmm.
I had that a little bit when my other cousin who was older, he had like the most he ran emulators, and I didn't realize there were emulators at the time, but I watched him play Zelda Link to the Past, and thought that was like another epic journey that he was going on, because he had to like find these items, he had to go to these areas, fight these bosses, and I just thought it was like this grand epic adventure. I also watched him play other games like Resident Evil. I never played Resident Evil myself, and that game kind of freaked me out a little bit. But he played it. It was like almost like he was playing a movie, because the game had story dialogue with the action, and there was these random cutscenes of like enemies coming out, and I thought like this is awesome, but it would scare me if I had to play.
The
And
voice
he would
acting,
die sometimes.
the voice acting, if you listen to it today, is hilarious. It's really, really bad.
Well, yeah, it's funny, but
Yeah.
I actually watched him play Resident Evil 2. I never watched him play Resident Evil 1. So 2 was a little better
Okay.
in that regard. Not much, but I think the concept for 2 was more interesting to me than 1. I didn't know about 1 until way after, but when he played Resident Evil 2, he was like a random cop in the city where everything was going to hell, and I just thought how crazy this was. And I didn't watch a whole lot of zombie movies. I didn't realize all the inspirations, but I just thought it was so cool. And that like he would find a character like at a gun shop, the gun shop owner, but then he just died, and I was like all bummed out, you know. And it was just like I watched him play through the story, just like wondering where the story was gonna go. Like I remember I think it was the chief of police who was like paid for by Umbrella. Don't quote me on this. I'm not super familiar on the Resident Evil 2 story, and just thought like it was great when eventually he died, and being concerned about the little girl, because it was always depressing when she died because my cousin failed to play the game right.
Uh-huh.
But and being like the final boss and how epic that was, like
For
just watching him play through that was interesting.
Yeah, I mean, for me, that was one of those games. Again, I was not allowed to play, so my cousin had Resident Evil, the first one, and there's this very specific scene that I can remember even today because it haunted me so for so long. There's a scene as soon as you start the game, you like walk in and you see your very first zombie, and I remember he's like eating somebody's body, and then he turns his face to you, and you see like the
Ah,
blood like coming down,
the famous
and
turnaround.
yeah, today it looks terrible, but back then it looked so real to me. Um, and I remember
That was
just
your first
watching him
encounter with
play.
a zombie, right?
Yeah, yeah. Um, it's really cool, and I remember I had so many nightmares because I was like 5 or 6 years old. Um, but yeah, that was something that I enjoyed watching him play. That or Grand Theft Auto 3. I remember he was playing that, and again couldn't play it, but it was it was good to see him play it. But one game that I can remember specifically, because I'm not big into watching like streams of people playing things. Like I always say, if you want to play a game or if you want to watch a game, play it. I don't know yourself. Um, but for me, one thing that I've never enjoyed playing, but I've always enjoyed watching people play is do you remember those games in like the late 2010s or early 2010s that it was like Happy Wheels
Oh, was
or
that like a cheesy PC game?
yeah,
There's a
yeah.
bunch of Happy Wheels games.
Yeah, Happy Wheels. There was also that one with the snake where you'd or even with the bubble and you'd
I
eat
might be
smaller
confusing that with something
bubbles.
else. Oh wait,
Um,
the IO games,
yeah,
the one where you play a single cell organism, you eat other
yes,
ones and you become bigger, and then there was a snake version, same thing pretty much.
yes, yep. To me, those were never fun for me because I was just not good at them. But they were so fun to watch other people like just do crazy stuff and get huge and eat the bigger guys. Same with Happy Wheels. That was the one where I think you're like on in a you're either in a wheelchair or you're in a
Oh, that was a physics based sort of like
yeah.
obstacle course game. Okay, I confused that with Hot Wheels. Never
No, it's
mind.
not.
But Happy Wheels, I
Yeah.
seen that was YouTube fodder. I remember like
Yes.
seeing random clips of Markiplier or PewDiePie or Jacksepticeye
Yeah.
playing those games.
They were
It was
upset.
quite
All of
funny,
them.
quite
Yeah.
entertaining.
They were funny. Oh, looks like
Oh, but
Hot
yeah,
Dog wants to call in.
yeah. I don't know if he's asking what that command was. But yeah, that's a
Oh,
calling command. If you want to share any anecdotes about games of your past, you can join with the call-in command, and you can share if you so choose. Um, but yeah, and that actually turned into another genre, streamer bait games or YouTube fodder games that are basically made to be promoted on YouTube. Like, does anyone remember a Surgeon Simulator? Actually, I remember I
that's
had you play
perfect.
that at
Perfect
Radio
example. I don't enjoy playing those, but they're really fun to watch.
Yeah, that was
That was actually a really good one. Yeah.
But sort of to go on the topic of watching a game versus playing a game, I actually always liked watching Let's Plays of games where, um, I don't intend to play them, but I kind of want to get an idea of how they worked. You know what I mean? Anyway, I think we might actually have a call in here, so let's add him in.
Hello.
Yo, Hot Dog, can you hear us?
Hey, Hot Dog.
Yes, I can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, okay, great. It's let me just put you in the middle here. Yeah, so yeah, we were talking about games that shaped us. Do you have any stories of either games from your childhood or like adolescence or recently that were relevant to you or made you to the gamer who you are today?
Yes, I do have one. At least a few ones. Do you know the game Skyward Sword for the Wii?
Zelda, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
From the Wii, right?
Here's a story that's very like of me being irresponsible as a little kid. So basically, I really wanted to finish the game. I basically rented out the game. Like I went to Blockbuster and rented it out. So basically, I would arrive at home and just play it every single day, basically. And I simply couldn't even get past the fucking past like saving your bird. I was that bad at the game. And I really and it was so
early?
fun.
I don't know about Skyward Sword. Is that early in the game?
I couldn't even get the fucking sword. I was so stupid, but I still wanted to finish it.
Were you younger? Is that why?
Yeah, it was like 10 years old, so I was 8 years old even so.
Oh wow!
So
you couldn't you were too young to comprehend the more advanced games.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, how do I do this? Because it wasn't my first Zelda game, but it was one of my first ones. Like when I actually started getting into the genre and like into games, it was more like when Twilight Princess came out, something like that. Or I think it was after Skyward Sword that I got more into gaming and stuff like that. And when I actually like understood how to do it. So basically I spent like with the game like for 2 months. The game I had it like rented for 2 months and I didn't return it. So it came out like
to the point where it probably would have cost you less if you just bought the game.
Yeah,
exactly. I kept asking me like, can I just buy it and shit? And I got in so much trouble because I had to like pay. We had to pay like $500 to Blockbusters. Oh my god. And they didn't let me like rent any more games after that.
Oh yeah, the late fees or something.
That's funny. Yeah,
I remember that.
I don't think Blockbuster had any like caps on that. There were some places that if you rented it for too long, they said, all right, well, we'll just give you the game and you pay full price to us. Yeah, I don't think Blockbuster had that. They just charge you fee after fee after fee. That's really funny.
Yeah, and that's how they make money. The stupid kids or the parents forget to return it. It's like, oh, you got a late fee. Yeah, and it was. I remember the late fees were always more than actually renting it. I actually had a ma and pa rental store, video store. They actually were fair. The late fee was just the cost of the rental. Well, they'll just keep stacking it on, which was very fair. But but Blockbuster, they were like they would like loan sharks. They'd find you, they shake it down. They're not like renting anymore until you cover your late fees.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had similar experiences.
Blockbuster is literally the how do you call it? The corporate lifeless thing.
Yeah. Very corporate.
Very corporate.
And it's funny because everybody always has good memories of them that they talk about, but they were kind of jerks in a way. They were
there's a reason they were going out of business.
Yeah.
Plus, you get to go to Blockbusters in your PJs. What's better?
Those were good times.
Yeah.
Also, the games were beat up, and sometimes they didn't work right, or they had save files from other people, and it was like, please don't delete or something like that.
Yeah, but
those were funny.
Yeah, imagine the person that put that please don't delete and they just never find the actual like same copy.
That's another problem. Like it was a crapshoot. I never really got into that. I rented games, but I they were like games I would scout to eventually ask to buy. But anyway, to go back on the Skyward Sword, that's an interesting Zelda game to stard with because it was a very story heavy Zelda game.
To be honest, I wasn't like very into reading, like in the game. Like I didn't know where to go and stuff. And it's basically it's in the exact same place where you start, but you have to go to. It's honestly Zelda. Like that Zelda game is not a good startup, in my honest opinion, because it's very story driven. And you're a kid, you're not gonna read shit. Believe me, you're not gonna read shit.
I just want to piggyback off that. I know I had a very similar problem as a kid in the PlayStation 1 days. On the PlayStation 1, all the tutorials on the games were text based. You'd have to sit there and actually read them. And what kid is going to sit there and read them? Yeah, who's going to do that? Right, and that's why I think tutorials now are just they take forever. You have to like watch a video or you have to like see them. They always have like little.
You wouldn't know how I used to like get past the games and like ingrain all that shit to myself. I used to watch how do you say it? Fucking tutorials like on YouTube, like how to guide. Yeah, the let's.
Right, walkthroughs. Yeah, I remember for some games I got stuck. I did that too sometimes. Do you have like so outside of Zelda, do you have any other story? Oh, by the way, appreciate the raid, Epictastic. We're doing call-ins if you want to share anecdotes. So anyway, I guess do you have any other stories either from your younger history or somewhat more recently, like maybe a game that got you to buy a console or something like that?
Yeah, actually. Do you know the game Assassin's Creed?
Yes.
Yeah.
Back in the day, my parents got us a PS3 like for like Christmas and stuff, and everybody was using it. We got like some games, and like I had this one friend. He's my neighbor on the same neighborhood, and we're like he had Assassin's Creed 3, and I liked and I watched him play, of course, because that's what you do when you're a kid. You watch your friends play games when you don't have it, always. And you're like, "Hey, what's this game about?" And I watched him, and I'm like, "I want to be a sneaky motherfucker." That's it. That's
medieval Hitman.
Yeah, medieval Hitman. Yeah, that's what's so cool about Assassin's Creed, in my opinion, because you're just gonna be a sneaky motherfucker and stuff.
Yeah, the early Assassin's Creed games were great. I remember owning the first one and really liking it, despite how basic it was. But honestly, I felt like as the series got on, it just got weirder and they were making dumb decisions.
I recently tried out the
game out and it wasn't done.
Yeah, I recently tried out like the Vikings one, and it's not what I wanted.
It was a good concept.
Yeah, good concept, but it's not a good Assassin's Creed concept because you're supposed to be an assassin, like something sneaky, and you're not gonna be really sneaky in like out in the forest because you can be easily spotted in the white snow, for example.
Was it more action based? I don't know much about this one.
Yeah, it's more action based. So, and I'm like, I don't like, and I played for like 3 hours that game, and I didn't really like it. And I really want to play like the third Assassin's Creed because that's the first introduction I ever got. And you know what my mom did once I got home? She saw the label, and I'm like, and she took it away. She put it in the trash. I never got to play.
You're not supposed to play it?
Yeah, like my dad got it for me once. And like my mom was, "No, you're not playing this. It's too violent." And
was it because it was rated M?
Yes.
See,
100%.
I went through the same problem. I actually have a similar story. I went with my dad to GameStop, and I finally was able to get a copy of Resident Evil 4. My mom never let me get Resident Evil 4. It was like that game that I wanted so bad. And eventually my dad said, "All right, fine. You're 15 years old. I will get it for you." And I come home. I have Resident Evil 4 in my hands. I'm ready to run inside and go play it. My mom says, "So what'd you get?" And she looks in the bag to see what I got. She sees Resident Evil 4, grabs it out of my hand, grabs the receipt, and takes it back to GameStop to return it.
Oh, you're 15?
At 15.
Goodness.
Yeah, at 15. So
bro, at least I was like 8 or 9.
Yeah, no, my parents were really strict, so it was hard for me to play those games.
Epictastic mentioned that Metal Gear Solid and Final Fantasy got him to get a PS1. Those games were big when they came out. I remember that. Final Fantasy in particular.
Yeah, both of those. I had a tech demo that I had a demo disc that had Metal Gear Solid 1, and I used to play it just over and over and over. That was a really great game on the PS1.
Oh boy, yeah. Now I'm just trying to think. Anyone else have any anecdotes? Anyone else might want to consider calling in? Any earlier or somewhat later stories you might want to share, Hot Dog, gaming related stories?
I'm thinking any gamer related stories.
Or at the very least, modern games that you're into.
Well, recently I've been trying to finish like God of War completely, like 100%, after the new game plus, because I feel like they're gonna do something like to port things, because it's a direct sequel, but I'm not sure like how they're gonna do it.
You're talking about God of War on PS4, right?
The new ones,
the PS5 and PS4 one.
This is a completely separate topic, but that's something that drives me nuts is when they make a new game and they just call it the same as the original game. So like God of War, that shares the exact same name as the original God of War. Same with like trying to think of another Devil May Cry. They made the new like reboot of Devil May Cry in 2011, 2012. It shares the exact same name, and it's like when you're trying to talk about a game or search for a game, it's like you have to distinguish what year it is. That's really annoying.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that whole thing. And actually, Epictastic just brought one up, Doom 2016. That was kind of like that. Although that one was more relevant because the first Doom was so long ago, and Doom 2016 was a whole new thing.
Yeah, but that's great.
But remakes are a weird thing. Gaming remakes.
Right.
Some are better than others.
Why do they have to call it the same thing? Because then you have to specify. Are you talking about Doom from 19 whatever year, or 2016? It's very annoying.
Yeah. Honestly, what I see is like when they say it's a remake, I think they're like trying to capture the essence of the old one and putting it to new hands. I think that's what they're trying to do. Or sometimes they're just doing it for money. So it really depends on either trying to do something new or are they trying to make a remake. Yeah.
Money.
All about money. That's right.
We got to have money.
We've got to have
that clip.
Money.
That was a clip from the Tom and Jerry movie.
Yeah.
Oh man. But yeah, I don't know. I'm glad you were able to stop on in, Hot Dog. And there was some good stories. And Epic is bringing some good stuff in the chat. Metal Gear Solid. Yeah, I never got into Metal Gear until 3. I randomly got, because 3 re-released on the Xbox 360 and I heard it was great. And it was basically like a movie. The cutscenes were absurdly long, but the game was epic. It was super hard to get into. The controls were not pick up and play. But when you got into it, it really felt like an amazing experience, a true survival experience, trying to go through and being super invested in the story too. Because the story of Metal Gear Solid is a convoluted clusterfuck, but 3 was the most grounded because it was the earliest in the timeline. I had no prior experience of Metal Gear Solid, but playing Metal Gear Solid 3 on the Xbox 360 was one of the best gaming experiences I played. I remember the boss fight with, oh God, what was his name? I think it was the End, the sniper guy, the old man. That was an amazing fight, and that was a great moment. Then I tried playing Metal Gear Solid 2. The fixed cameras angles, I could not get into. I couldn't do it. I couldn't.
I had the same problem because for me, I had a demo disc because they used to send these in the mail. This is another thing that they kind of stopped doing, but I used to get demo discs in the mail all the time, and I had one for Metal Gear Solid 1 and Metal Gear Solid 2, and I would play them very often because it was free. But Metal Gear Solid 2 was just very hard for me to get into because of those fixed camera angles. That just made it so tricky. I don't know.
Yeah, it's just a limitation of technology at the time.
Yeah,
that also reminds me of when I first played a Star Wars like Lego game, and it's so good. Honestly,
I never got into those.
Yeah, like the first one I played was like for PC, and I played it on my dad's laptop, it's so scuffed. It's literally like so scuffed because it's like there were no cutscenes, which was like for a Lego game, it never happens
It
because
was
normally
basically
there's
like a silent movie.
yeah, there weren't really any funny moments like you normally have. Like they didn't
It
have
was all
like
through expressions.
yeah, it
slapstick.
didn't have any of that. Like
It
I don't
was a
remember
bit
any
more
of
of
them.
a juvenile game, but it still had its place.
Yeah, but like the PC version was so boring, honestly. And then I got the 3DS one when I was much older. My grandfather gifted me a 3DS and with it the Lego Star Wars, and I played the shit out of that game, 100% everything, literally.
I feel like that's a good portable game to play.
Yes, 100%. I would recommend it. I'm still looking for the cartridge around my house everywhere because I still want to. I want to play it at least once more to bring out the memories and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, I hear you. The
nostalgia
Lego
factor.
Star Wars, they used to push that on the 360 because that's my favorite console, the 360. And they used to push that one hard because that was packed in with every 360 console at one point. So they were pushing that
those
game
little pack-in
hard.
deals.
Yeah, we actually had one at Radio Shack for a while. I don't know if you remember, but
I remember a couple of those.
That was always the pack-in title, and it was like they're really pushing this one. I'm not sure why. There's always been a ton of Lego games, though.
They were pushing the kit, like, because the Xbox 360 started with like the shooter hardcore, and then they wanted to try to get the kids away from
Connect and Lego and
honestly,
yeah,
here where I live,
like,
we didn't ever get pushed like the Xbox, never. Never. So the places that sold consoles and stuff like that, they only had like I never saw an Xbox in my life. I either saw PlayStation or Nintendo. That's just the things I ever saw.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very interesting.
Maybe it was like a shipping manufacturing thing. Maybe Xbox just never bothered sending it. It's always weird. When you go to other countries, it's like one area had like way more than others. Like, just sort of like a tangent here. I do know Street Fighter was big in the North American region, but in like the South American, and Central American, it was King of Fighters more so, and that's
that was
the main game over there.
That's interesting. I don't think King of Fighters is as popular here at all.
It is a game people know about, but it was just bigger. Basically, for us, it was Street Fighter was the main fighting game. For Central and South America, it was King of Fighters.
That's
interesting. And I can't comment on Europe or the Asian region. I don't know what their primary games were. I think Street Fighter was big in like Japan.
Yeah, over here, like I don't even know what's the main fighting game over here, but but since we have a lot of influence from the United States, like we have a fuck ton of influence, like tons of people from the United States come free for jobs, like from everywhere. Like we're basically a second United States, and we're basically formed by the United States also. Yeah, so
I'm sorry, where did you say you were from again?
Panama. It's Central America.
Panama? Oh, okay. yeah. I mean, like we had to, obviously, because we pay to own the Panama Canal, but that's like a history lesson. So.
Yeah, and you know what? You're still paying for reparations over here. So,
well, yeah, that's another complicated thing because we funded rebels or something against the government. I don't know. It's convoluted story.
It's very complicated.
If you want to know, go read the Wikipedia summary. But let's get back to games.
Yeah, yeah, but like that. We didn't even like I had one single friend that had an Xbox, one single friend, and like our schools are very packed, like normally like 20 students in a single classroom, like there's a lot of schools that have that and stuff like that, but even so, like he was the only single person I ever knew, and I still know, that has an Xbox, like in Central America at least.
Yeah. And I don't know, I mean, to me, when the PS3 first came out, the 360 was like at the very beginning, the 360 was the better console. Everybody
it was the winner of that generation, I think.
Yeah, well, the original and the 360.
As time went on, I think the PS3 kind of gained much bigger following.
It took a long time.
It took a while. It took games like Uncharted and
I think it's still like the top seller. Like
I think it actually did. Yeah, I think it did win, especially with the PS4 as well. I think it did win. But yeah, I mean, in the beginning, it definitely wasn't like that, but it kind of changed. It took a while for good games to get released, I think.
Yeah, it was like out of the gate, it was the 360, and then it eventually flip
Well,
for the PS3. And that's like an interesting conversation. It's like those console wars, like
Yeah.
which done better than others,
Mhm.
and in different regions in the area. Do you remember when I think it was was it when the Xbox One and the PS4 first came out? We had a lot of Brazilians come to try to find a console because Brazil, they have this weird law where gaming consoles are taxed to like be over $1,000 because they're treated like gambling
Ooh.
machines. So
What
it
the
was
fuck?
cheaper for people from Brazil to travel to the US or another country, buy the console there, and then come back to Brazil. It was like a weird thing
Interesting.
going on.
I didn't know that.
What?
But you don't remember Brazilians asking us if we had them and we were always out
No, I don't recall
in
that.
Radio Shack?
No, I don't
Holy
recall
shit!
that.
Well, how's that even? Why do they even consider gaming consoles gambling?
It was an arbitrary classification by like the Brazilian government at the time. I don't know if it still is or if they fix it, but it was just taxed so heavily. It was not practical for a normal family to own a gaming console back then that wasn't old. And I think like the old retro gaming stuff still existed in Brazil just because it was the only affordable option for the longest time. But that's like a gaming history. That's like an interesting topic too.
That's a good topic, I think. I want to just bring up Epic's comment because I definitely remember this. He said that PS3 is considered the more favorite console now, but not so much then, and that's definitely what I remember. The PS3, I actually had it when it first came out. It was terrible. There was like only a few games, and there really was not a big selection. I remember all my friends had 360s, and they had the better games by far. The PS3 was so hard to develop for. It was because of the processor they went with. But as time went on, it recovered so amazingly, and it's amazing what they were able to accomplish. It was definitely the better console later on.
That reminds me that we only ever owned like 5 games for the PS4. I mean the PS3.
Okay.
We own more games for the PS4.
Maybe you got it later on in its life.
No, we got it early on.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, like around the time that, like a few months after its release, and it still didn't have that much games like shipped here to Panama.
Interesting. Yeah. Okay. Right. You have that Panama aspect.
It was the selection was still big, but not as good. Like for example, like what we did have a lot of the time was like PlayStation or Nintendo, just that. And like we never had Xbox. No. And like after a while, we did have like a big selection for like PlayStation.
One thing that's always bothered me about the PlayStation 3 is that they kind of dropped off some of their biggest names, right? They did not make any Spyro games for the PS3, at least with the same developer. The developer had changed.
Yeah.
Well, Naughty Dog, they wanted to shift focus from the cartoony to the realistic with Uncharted.
That's the next one I was going to say. Jak and Daxter. They never made another Jak and Daxter. That was the face of PlayStation 2 was Jak and Daxter. They didn't make that. God of War 2, which was one of the best selling games on the PlayStation 2. They took them years to make God of War 3. So it really sucked to have a PS3 early, which I did, and it was tough. But as time went on, there was some good ones. Like I said, Uncharted. I forget that other one that Naughty Dog had made. But the games just became a lot better over time. Took a while, but yeah.
Yeah, and Savage Jasic gave us some context. The PS3 used PowerPC, which was easy to develop for. Same with the 360. But the PS3 also used cell cores that to this day are impossible to code for. Well, yeah, that's another thing that the developers have to consider is they make the people who make the console, they want to make them so it's easy to develop for. Which was an issue with the N64 had as well, in a different way.
That's what I remember always reading was the cell cores of the PS3. It was just so hard to develop for, which is why even when we did get games on the PS3, they usually ran worse than on the 360. That's something that always bothered me.
I remember that.
That Skate, I remember so a couple Need for Speed games, they ran so poorly on the PS3. It was so unfortunate. Which is interesting because the PlayStation 3 had like the backwards compatibility idea in the beginning. They had some like good ideas. They had the Wi-Fi, which Xbox 360 didn't have. Blu-ray. They had Blu-ray before anybody else even thought it would be the winner.
That's true. You could watch
The
movies on
Xbox
that.
360 had an HD DVD attachment.
Yeah.
Do you
Wait,
remember that?
really?
Attachments. Listen to what you said there. Attachments.
I
You got to
think-
buy something extra.
I think early on, like the Xbox would have, like, if they advertised that more, it would have sold a bit more, honestly, because people watch more DVD than Blu-ray back in the day.
It was cheap.
Like-
you know.
Yeah.
It was cheaper, yeah.
It was cheaper. Yeah. So maybe they just didn't advertise it enough. I'm not sure. Remember, it was an
Well, the
attachment you had to buy
PlayStation
extra.
3 became just like how the for a little bit of a gaming history lesson, the PS2 became family's first DVD player. The PS3 also became family's first Blu-ray player.
Mhm.
Like the family wanted a Blu-ray player, and the kid won't shut the hell up about getting the new console. Fine, we'll kill two birds with one stone. We'll use this for watching movies and shut the kid up by giving them the game console.
It was the cheapest Blu-ray player at the time as well. So that's, I think, what kind of drove it.
Which is really interesting that the game console was a more. I remember though the UI sucked. It worked. That was the thing. It worked. And why on earth would you buy a more expensive Blu-ray player?
Actually,
if you have a game
like
console?
like the PS3 has like a wonderful like TV controller for it.
Oh yeah, the TV
You had to
controller.
buy
really
that though,
good.
extra.
Yeah,
You had to
actually,
buy, if you
As
used
far
the
as I know, it's
controller,
really good.
Well,
if you use the controller, it sucked.
my parents have a
Yeah.
Sony Blu-ray player. It's not affiliated with PlayStation at all, and it uses that same UI. I think they call it the crossbar. They use the same UI. I actually like that UI. As time went on, the 360 really changed their UI, and I hate what became of it. But yeah, Epic, The Last of Us. That's what I was thinking of. Thank you for that. And then on your comment about the Wii, the Wii was definitely the best seller. But to me, I don't really consider the Wii as like a competitor. Like I feel like it's its own thing
Like-
because it wasn't.
Like
I
I
don't know.
would say that the Wii did like win in terms of like sales.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah,
definitely.
they became super accessible. They included young kids and the elderly, which was an untapped
which
market.
made it like very sold. But that set up their next console to failure because they wanted to make an add-on onto it and stuff.
Yeah, well, they basically the Wii U was the Switch, but tethered to your living room and was pointless. Like it was a transitional technology that just
Like,
did not work.
No, like a lot of people saw that as like an add-on onto the like not an add-on, but like
oh yeah, people
a new version.
assume that.
The
yeah.
name.
Assume that
I think it's the
immediately.
name.
And
that
it
they
wasn't
did that.
powerful. It was still weak. The games looked bad compared to the other consoles.
Yeah. But like
Yeah.
so they immediately assumed like, oh, this is the same thing. I won't buy it. Like,
Yeah, I think it was
yeah.
the naming scheme, which is interesting that you say that because the Xbox One also had a very bad naming scheme, but I don't think it ran into that problem. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
think that one.
I
also
remember the first,
Yeah.
like when they
Like,
announced
the
it,
main-
being confused. Like one, you mean the original?
I would say like the main reason it happened to that is because elderly adults, everybody was in it. So only
Yeah.
the actual people who were in the Nintendo circle understood it.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that means like, oh, what? That's I don't need it. I already have it.
Mhm.
That's their mindset because people back then like didn't want to spend as much money on consoles because it was
Yeah.
more volatile.
They were too successful for the Wii that they set themselves up for failure. But hey,
Yeah.
they made up for it with the Switch, and I'm dreading when there's a new version of a Switch I'll have to buy
Yeah.
that's more powerful. But it seems like Nintendo's holding off, thankfully, for a while anyway.
Yeah.
Well, the Switch has been out for many years now, right? Didn't it come out?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's showing its age a little bit in terms of how good the
yeah?
game looks.
So I wonder what the
I'm
next thing
just-
they're gonna do
Yeah,
is.
you know that reminds me of the PS5 and how like they changed it like on the later release of the PS5 and it became worse. And like the person that shed light to it, I don't remember. He's a YouTuber and like he got canceled for no reason. He was shedding light on how Sony was fucking you over
Hmm.
and how they were like, "Hey, we're making a worse version of this console, which you have to pay the same amount."
Are
if
you
you-
I think I heard about this. Are you referring to? I think it was like a heating problem where.
Yeah, that one.
I think it was the newer version. Like now has like a almost like a
Overheat.
360 overheating type
Yeah.
problem. The red ring of death.
And you probably won't be able to like return it or anything because they'll probably put a clause in the shit.
Their warranties sucked.
Yeah, they made it like more easily broken. What's the name? Planned obsolescence.
Planned obsolescence.
Yeah. Like
So
stuff is supposed to die.
They did that deliberately.
Maybe it has to do with the chip shortage. So they have to
now it's
kind
a
of
problem.
Yeah, they take cheaper routes.
The overheating issue. I remember Deathrow at Radio Shack when you got annoyed by the fans on the PlayStation 3. You put Q-tips to jam the fans shut so they wouldn't go because they annoyed you so much. That was really smart.
You know something? Like most console developers lose money when making a console. Like when they sell it.
It's a loss leader. They make up for it in the game console.
Yeah.
They make up for it in game sales. Excuse me. They make up for it in game sales.
Well, think about it. Like Sony and Microsoft, they make their money in the subscriptions.
The production cost, like the production cost of I don't remember exactly, but like a PS3, the production cost of that was like $800 per console. They could not sell that at that price to even break even. They had to sell at a loss to hopefully make up for it in game sales. Because no one's gonna when you look at Nintendo's one of the few gaming companies that actually sells at a profit a little bit, but I'm pretty sure the Xbox and the PlayStation, I think they less so than they used to. They have to sell at a loss because it is a terrible PR move to say, hey, we're gonna sell you at the production cost. It's gonna be 1,000, and no one would buy that shit.
Yeah. I mean, no.
Something else that reminds me of how Nintendo now is like going up like at the same rate as on their online subscription as PlayStation and Xbox. No, it's like $50, some shit like that.
Don't even remind me about that nonsense. If we want to get into topical news, they added what everyone wanted was a 3 or a 60 N64 emu onto the Switch, like they have with the SNES and the NES. They did not say what the extra cost was going to be. Yeah. And my assumption, which I was highballing, was $20 extra. But what do they fucking do? $30 extra, $50 per month, and they threw in Animal Crossing DLC as a bonus, which I don't care about because I don't own Animal Crossing.
So wait, that's a subscription now to get the emulator?
You have to add it onto your subscription.
That's silly.
Yes. See, I'm not getting that. If I can still play online without it, and I can play the N64 through other means that are perfectly legitimate with physical hardware.
Yeah. Wow, that's not a good move. Not for backwards compatibility.
They need to change that. They need to dump the Assassin's Creed, the Animal Crossing DLC, and make it just the Sega and the N64 at a more reasonable rate. I would actually be willing to pay $20 extra. Even that's kind of high. I think they should have just done $10 or $15 extra.
Yeah.
For a couple of ROMs, they don't lose on production. Like, come on.
Well, they could have just dumped the files they already have. Like dumped it and like just put it in the Switch.
Why can't they just do what they normally do with the Wii and the Wii U, where you buy the game for $10? I don't get it.
That's true. They could have also done that and made much more of a profit.
Like the Virtual Console, the Wii Virtual Console was one of the best because they whatever games you want. Something you can argue the games were overpriced, but they weren't a wallet breaking. Hey, $5 for this SNES game. Well, it's $5, but hey, it's on the Wii, and it's convenient. If they did that now for the N64, I would be a lot better. I'd be willing to spend like maybe $5.
I would have preferred. I would have preferred if they went with the both options. Like they can also sell them like
the
on
bundle.
why
not?
eShop.
Too.
They can sell on the eShop, and they can give you the option of having the subscription and play it online instead.
Yeah, I agree with that. But one thing that's always driven me nuts about Wii or Nintendo, they've always given you the option of playing the older games, which is awesome because no one like Microsoft and Sony didn't always consider that. but I think you have to pay for it each and every time. So let's just take an old game. Let's say Pokemon Stadium on the N64. I think to play that on Wii, you had to pay for it. Then you had to pay for it again on Wii U. Like, it doesn't transfer over. And now if you want to play it a third time, now guess what? You got to pay subscription based on the Switch. To me, that's not really acceptable, you know? No. Whereas if I bought a game on Xbox 15 years ago, I can still play it today, you know, on my brand new console, which is,
you know what they could have done?
I wish they would come up with like cross-platform licensing, like just so you don't have to like buy it several times over.
I think what they should have done, like with the Wii and Wii U, is like if you bought it on Wii, they should have given you like an option to, hey, I want to pass it over, so they give you a discount code to pass it over.
Yeah, discount codes. Yeah, geez, something simple like that. Yeah, they can easily stop like people abusing it, because a discount code is like you have to have proof of purchase, which they could probably have a purchase code you'd put in.
Yeah, they could have done an easy like system check.
Mm-hmm. Like I think the Wii, the store shut down, didn't it?
Yeah,
so
it did.
Anything you bought is now
console.
Anything you bought is now gone. So it's like,
well, I mean, they exist on your old console
if you downloaded them.
If you downloaded them.
Let's just say your console dies for whatever reason. You go get another one. You're out of luck. That's it.
SOL.
Yeah. And to me, that's not a good concept. Like, for example, Epic here says that he has 200 plus games on his PS Plus.
Yeah.
You know, that's for less. Yeah,
for $10 less than the Switch with the highest tier Switch.
Right.
And the PSN has a good thing going with like persistent free games.
Yes. Yep. And Xbox is doing a similar thing, and I don't understand why Nintendo can't follow suit.
You need to have continuously like have the subscription on to like be accessible to the game. So
yeah,
that's kind of like that.
Well, that's how they get you. That's how they keep you.
That's how they get you.
Yeah. And I'm not against it. I mean, some of them they're not bad, you know, not bad pricing. But this Nintendo one, that to me, that doesn't make sense.
Yeah, I think Nintendo right now, like after the Wii U, they're going in like extremely safe route right now. Like they're on baby wheels right now, like baby steps again.
I feel like Nintendo always kind of lags behind compared to Microsoft and Sony, and it's really frustrating.
Hell yes.
Yeah.
I like their games, but when it comes to online stuff, they're like 10 years behind. Yeah. They're only recently understanding how DLC should work with games. I'm hoping that they support superstars, but that's not a guarantee. But, you know, the reason Smash was the most recent example of them actually continually supporting a game with extra characters and content. They were kind of doing this with Animal Crossing and the Mario Golf game too. So they are starting to realize this. But this was a thing with other companies like a decade ago. Well, and now with this online subscription thing, they're like making the weirdest decisions. I just don't get it.
I'm really curious, like how coded it is. Like, I'm really curious of how good or bad the coding for like the online is for it to be this bad.
The net coding,
the net coding it has to be like pretty bad, or at least hire a company to fix it up for you. They can do that.
Actually, there was rumors that Nintendo's gonna like work with Microsoft. I don't know what came of that. Like if Microsoft was gonna help Nintendo have a better online infrastructure.
Well,
but their online sucks. When you look at Smash, they don't have rollback. The Nickelodeon game has rollback, and it's just so outdated. And Epic also brings up a good point. The games aren't yours. But I'm just fine with the shit. Well, actually, I mean that's the trade-off. The games aren't yours because they could lose, and that's why I like Steam actually, because basically Steam is everything is a la carte. There's no online fee. You want a game, you buy it. It'll go on sale frequently if you really, really want it. And now it's an apocalyptic scenario where Steam servers go up in smoke, but if you have the games on your download it, you can play them on offline mode. If there's news that Steam is about to shut down, I can guarantee people are going to be downloading up their most favorite game onto like a huge drive, and I'm sure Steam is not really going anywhere anytime soon. Well, that's in an apocalyptic scenario, they'll probably make it you can still get your games if you own them.
That's what
you pay for them.
Just look at CS:GO. They recently got like a update recently, like adding new stuff and on it as far as I heard someone talking to me about that. I'm not 100% sure. If don't take me as as thing, but as far as I know, like CS:GO is having a lot of support. Their trading is like very like active, as so
Yep.
is in Team Fortress 2,
Yep.
and like they're not going anywhere soon because of like all the Valve fanboys, like 100%.
Yeah.
Like as far as I know, like the Team Fortress 2 hasn't had like a major update in 5 years, and they're still getting peaks on fucking games, on fucking players. Yeah, like they're having like all times highs, even with all the fucking bots and shit.
I remember they
Yeah.
used to have
But I
events
think
and all
most
that.
of
I
the
got
bots
into
are just
TF2 bit.
the new players.
Yeah, I mean this goes back way early in the stream. I was talking about games for Windows Live and GameSpy. Those used to be like they predated Steam. But for whoever bought those games back in the day on Games for Windows Live or GameSpy, you're out of luck. You can
It was
never
a
download those
DRM
games.
check.
Yeah, there's DRM and stuff, so you'll never be able to play those games again. That's just wasted money. You own nothing. That money's gone, and you
Yeah,
have
that's
nothing.
the
wonder
one
if
thing
any-
like people are regretting with
I wonder if any
when we're
games like
abandoning physical
uploaded.
medium.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. I wonder if any games like in there, like that used to be there, are abandonware. You know, like
Oh
games.
yeah, that's
Yeah,
Mm. Yeah.
that's just a whole treasure trove of games that haven't seen like in a few decades.
hence why there's tip of
or
my
a few years.
joystick a subreddit, and why I was
Yeah.
looking for Gravity Well. There's like old games that are completely forgotten about.
Yeah, like I fucking hate when the developers completely
Archaeological
stop
dig.
like the complete support on a game, or at least not. I would argue that at least game developers, like after like 5 years, they stop selling a game. They should put it up in an online store, or at least like some way for it to be preserved, or at least in a museum.
Yeah. Or
Mm.
you know, God forbid, maybe they consider, if they think they have no plans of re-releasing or making money, put these games in the public domain. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know if they do that. Like, does any game dev have any of them put a game in the public domain? I don't think games
so.
existed long enough to fall into the public domain on their own.
I don't think
remember
like
Notch considered putting Minecraft in the public domain before Microsoft gave him boatloads of money, but I understand his decision.
I can tell you, if it went up in the public domain and it got extremely popular, I can guarantee you a big fucking company like Microsoft or Disney would have gotten into that shit immediately and gotten the copyright for that.
Yeah.
Because
Well, I don't know if it's in the
'cause-
public domain. I think it stays that way, but it
No.
allows Microsoft to re-release.
nope, Disney has done it many times. For example, Cinderella.
Oh yeah, he's
Example,
right.
Cinderella. Cinderella
Yeah.
is like, yeah, Cinderella used to be in the public domain like for a long time.
Oh,
It used to.
Oh.
It's like a
but
European.
are you talking
story
about
tale.
the Disney property Cinderella or the original Grimm's fairy tale?
Well, it's based off.
Both.
Of
think you can-
though.
Wait,
Both.
they actually seized property of public domain? I'm
Yeah,
not a lawyer. I didn't know that. I thought it
Yeah,
was
they
in stone
actually
if it was in the public
hold.
domain.
You make anything related to Cinderella and try to make a profit, you gotta go through Disney first, always,
Oh God, I
'Cause-
didn't know that was the thing.
because they can sue you
Hmm.
because their story is still lined up with the original one, so it's still like
Pulse-
they technically own both.
Well, I don't know. I mean, I guess there's some contention. We got to look into this. Pulse is saying Cinderella is still in the public domain. I don't know. And also, but most games like that are called abandonware. Actually, that when it comes to abandonware, there's often an owner, but it's to the point where the original owner is either dead or doesn't care, and people will like pirate the games because there's literally no other way to play the games other than through pirating. So at that point, it's like you're not supposed to, but there's literally no other way, and the original creators or owners does not care. That's
Yeah,
like a
like-
thing that
like
happens. too
Nintendo
with
has
games.
a
It's
lot of-
legally
A
gray.
lot of them. Nintendo has a lot of abandonware games, like tons of SNES games, like classic games. Like if you go back to like before Wii U, like Wii U and back, that all of it is abandonware. Like because Nintendo's not trying to put it back up, and like a lot of games are abandonware because they're sold by retailers. I don't think like the Wii, you can't buy Wii U games anymore in the shop. eShop because I think they took it down. So basically,
Yeah.
all of those games are abandonware because
But
Nintendo's
yeah, as we were
not.
talking about before, of putting the abandonware just on a place so anyone can get them, Steam kind of turned into that where they'll throw the game on Steam just to make a few extra bucks, and that's I wish they would just put in that minimum amount of effort for some of these old
Yeah.
forgotten games.
Yeah, at least use like a general like ROM website and make a deal with them. Like they're like, you, hey, let's make a deal. You put ads in your website, we take 50% of the profit of that website, and you run it. That's it. You can do that.
Oh, speaking of, actually, I have a minor story trying to find an abandonware game. I remember I was watching a video a while ago about. Does anyone remember Xbox Live arcade XNA games, where basically anyone could make a game with like very basic game engine? I remember this one game called Compromised, a very generic name, and it was a shooter with upgrades and like some kind of story. And well, I don't remember it, but it was in the video. He was talking about these Xbox Live, like forgotten, like little indie games made by like one person, and this game looked good. I was trying to find this game. I couldn't find it anywhere. Like I found on the archive websites, the website with a download link. The link is dead. You can't get it. I actually tried to reach out on Twitter to some of the devs that were tied to the game. Of course, none of them responded. And some of them I think were hired after the game was made. And I straight up, this game was on Steam Greenlight. They tried to put it on Steam, but Steam Greenlight went up in smoke. So therefore, the game went up in smoke too. Compromise for the original Xbox Arcade, I can't fucking find. If anyone knows where to find that basic space shooter game,
So that's a
let me know.
digital only game.
Digital only game.
Right.
For
You can
the
ask
original-
of my joystick.
For the
You can ask them.
original.
Well,
Xbox?
no, Pulse. You are right that they keep the games, and all their properties. But I'm not so much Nintendo, but more third party indie devs. They'll stop caring. Which they could care one day if someone was pirating their game, then they might start caring. Nintendo definitely cares. They do
Yeah,
not. They
100%.
go after you. They if there's an abandonware from Nintendo, they will stop you because they anticipate they might make money on it one day. But there's this like unofficial rule where if a game dev seems like they're a dead company, then they may not care, and you can try. You know what I mean?
So
There is a site you can download abandonware called abandonware.com. I vaguely heard of it. I think the site looked kind of sketch last I checked, but I want to look because that's like a good archaeological dig looking at old abandonware games. I actually went through some of it with my recent iceberg topic, looking like tangentially look these old unreleased games. It's actually very interesting.
Yeah, that sounds like. I know a few like how do you say it, vault, like video game vaults, like for like abandonedware and stuff like that, where they have like there's a bunch of them like that I know. Well, not a bunch of them, like two, like the one you just spoke of, and another one that I prefer not to speak because then sometimes when you speak out about like these types of things, like for example, Nintendo might go after them because they have like the whole catalog of Nintendo games. Like
oh yeah, shh! Don't let them know.
Nintendo's
yeah,
bad about
yeah,
that.
don't let them know. And like
They're
it's
very bad about it.
Yeah, it's very good to keep them in the down low, but sometimes you have to speak out about them. Like for example, if they're a non-profit, you can speak all you want about it because they're not profiting any type of way. They can't take any real legal action because, for example, manga decks, they are non-profit, like for reading manga, 100% suggested. You won't get in trouble. Manga decks is like for like manga and reading for free.
Okay.
Like and like it's normally like supported by scan groups, and so they don't get into legal any. They're in a legal gray zone, so they don't get into any trouble because they're a non-profit and they're not making
The
any
law
profit
has
out
not
of that.
caught up to this like online sphere, really.
Yeah, like they've been trying to like get caught up on like those types of places, but they haven't gotten anywhere. For example, like Nintendo has tried suing people who's have like dumped their game files and like the games, into like ROMs for themselves and for them to use, and they got into legal action and they didn't get into any real trouble. So
the main issue is if people are profiting off of
Yeah.
others' property. If they're just releasing for preservation purposes, I think legally they are okay.
yeah, 100%.
Like you're fine so long as you're not making money from property that doesn't belong to you. I mean, that's like a whole legal question, and who knows how things could turn in the international court, copyright law courts. It's a touchy subject, but I like to think morally, if you're not making money and this is like old games that no one's bothering to remake, just leave it alone. There's a lot of old there's like a lot of online only games that are dead. Like, does anyone remember Mag? I mean, that was like a PS3 Xbox 360 game that was exclusively online only, and that game is effectively dead, and I don't think there's any way to even play through the game to look at the assets because it was all over a server. And there's like games in the past that were just forgotten about, just fell into the ether. And it's just
that yeah, Mag, I remember that one. I mean, that's a great point. That's even the case with some older, like just what I was talking about earlier, Fortnite. If you wanted to play it in the original way it was like originally made, you can't, right? You like even in League of Legends, I want to play it as it was back in 2009. I can't. There's no way. The game has
I'm pretty
changed
sure
visually.
you can, like for Fortnite, I'm pretty sure you can like play the
there's
actual
vanilla
game version,
servers, right?
like the
Like
vanilla.
this was a big thing
You're-
for WoW. WoW
You
had
have
the
a way to
classic
change the
servers.
servers to something like a previous
The
patch.
third party.
Yeah,
I
if
think,
you open
right?
it up on PC and you play it up on the Epic Games Launcher, it gives you the option for regular Fortnite, the original version,
Okay.
and then the Battle Royale. The Battle Royale is free, but the original version costs money. That's the thing. So basically,
I mean,
I don't like.
I would pay, but
Yeah, I've wanted to. I've always wanted to play the original version of Fortnite.
How many
'cause
people played the old ones though?
I have no fucking clue.
not even
But like
close
when
to as many as
I
the new
remember
one.
first seeing the trailer for Fortnite, and I was like, I want to play this. Like the first ever, like I
The
like the
original
concept.
trailer's
Build-
unrecognizable to what the game is now.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm like, I want to play the original version still, and I'm 100% sure they still have the servers up for that, and you can select that.
Or even if they don't, people can like run their own servers.
Yeah,
their own
probably.
dedicated servers. Like does anyone remember WoW Classic? I don't know too much about this, but the devs of WoW tried to stop them, and it was pissing people off, and then they re-released their own version, and I forget what they did to piss people off again, but it was like they kept fighting with their community. Their community wanted to play their game a certain way, and the devs were trying to force their new way onto the gaming community.
Yeah.
And it just caused a lot of contention.
Yeah. And that just reminds me of how out the legal trouble Blizzard's going right now. Like all of that.
Oh yeah, that's yet to be seen.
Yeah, and like I think it's very fucked with what happened all over there and like and how they're all that's happening over there, because that's really fucked. And how literally they literally have a room called the Cosby room. How the fuck is that even good?
Oh,
Yeah, I know, right? It's so fucked. It's like, yeah, look,
I don't even understand that. Was that meant to be
yeah.
a joke? Like, why would they do
yeah,
that?
why even consider that? Like it was probably like around the time where it started out or some shit. That's my guessing. Like, oh yeah, the allegations started out and people were saying like they were fake or some shit, and like they decided to make it as a joke, a sick fucking joke.
That was a bad look. That was
Yeah.
I mean, game companies are known for not being the best to their employees because of the quote unquote crunch time, and they have
Yeah.
these ridiculous timetables. This is why I kind of like Rockstar, although they had their issues in the past too with LA Noire in particular. But they actually take their time with games. They never really give concrete dates. I think they give their developers a little more leeway to get the job done without making them work 24/7 for like months at a time, and it's just
Yeah, and sometimes they aren't even paid, but they still do the crunch because they have a deadline. They love what they're doing, and they like promote it 100% of the time. And like,
I feel like if enough developers get stuck in crunch time, they'll stop loving what
yeah,
they're doing.
for example, what was the developer for what he said? Well, let me check in my Steam library because I don't remember the name of the developer. But it's developers for The Witcher, I remember, and Cyberpunk.
Oh, CD Project Red.
CD Projekt,
yeah.
See, they crunch so fucking much just to get like
They're a smaller team.
Cyberpunk. Yeah, but they had to crunch
And
so
Cyberpunk
much.
is another issue.
Yeah, it was like when they released the trailer, it was nowhere near completion. It was like in the early stages, as far as I heard.
Like they barely started the game, and we got some clarification from Pulse. ROMs are only legal if you dump them yourself from something you purchase. Sharing, distributing is illegal according to current copyright law. It's black and white. The gray comes because some companies choose not to pursue distributors. It's like how fan art is illegal. Well, fan art's weird because that's considered derivative works, and that can be its own thing, but it's that one I don't fully understand.
Fan
but
art?
you are right. We all legally own every game that's on an emulator. We own the physical copies and we dump them ourselves. Totally.
Yeah, like in the US, for example, like fan art is not illegal. It's not because it's your own version of the artwork. Therefore, it's your own
derivative
copyright.
works is like the legal term.
Yeah, it's a
You
derivative.
have to prove
work.
you changed enough. Like if you did your own thing and you straight up put like a cheesy like hat on the character, then the courts might say that's not distinct. That's like you putting something on and selling it as your own. But like derivative works, it's a weird fine line. You have to prove you changed enough to change the original meaning or to make it your own. But in a lot of other, I know the UK is pretty bad with this. Like they don't really have derivative works or fair use. And it's an issue sometimes.
Yeah, for example, like I remember this one Twitch streamer that got a lawsuit from Nintendo for having a tattoo of like a Pokemon on her, and like she had to change her name. She had to like now she has to make sure she doesn't have that. Like literally, like her Twitch name is no longer what I don't remember which one was it, but like. Someone checking someone.
I very vaguely remember the story.
But like
either.
all of this is like because she's using the Pokemon name and all of that, and they ended up winning. So it's a shame. And that also makes it question like when is it your own thing? Because it really depends on like how different it is and like are you making money out of it too? Like, for example, like you can make a whole Pokemon.
That streamer was making money off of it, though. That's what complicated things.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's why she lost. And the thing is, like, if you're making money out of it, that's probably you're in trouble. And like, for example, you're making a Pokemon team. You're making a commission. For example, maybe making the Pokemon might get you a little in the red flag. But if you do it like in your own art style, and to the specifications of the commissioner, and to make their own like character for them and all that, that's probably okay because it's fun art, which you pay for it, which is normally okay as far as I know.
Well, we hit off a good amount of alternate topics there. I thought that was a good conversation. So to sort of talk about modern gaming news and then issues in the industry went a little bit longer than I expected. So I don't know if anyone else has anything else they want to bring in. I think we might be getting close to ending things off. Do you have anything, Deathrow?
It's everything I wanted to bring up.
All right. Any final thoughts, Hot Dog, being our first call-in?
Yeah. 100% you should check your rights on what you can dump as games. Make sure to preserve what you have.
Protect yourself.
Protect yourself always. Make sure you use a VPN when doing that kind of thing because some people just do it nearly enough times to get into legal trouble.
Yeah. And for the love of God, don't seed. Don't seed. That's how you get caught.
Well, you can actually get caught without.
Well, yeah, it's harder though.
Yeah, it is harder. Yeah.
You get caught. It's
not that I condone any illegal action of any kind.
No,
we don't condone any.
Just buy from the official Nintendo store. Give them their money.
Yes.
And even if they make a new console and they re-release the same game, give them their money again.
Well, the thing is, it's like a digital version. You can't really like dump it into an emulator because then that's illegal. You have to have the physical version.
This
So
is
make
why
sure to own a
Yeah,
physical
yeah, this is
version.
why I love getting physical items, like physical games. I don't want
It's
the
kind of
digital
making a
stuff.
comeback, at least with the Switch. They
Yeah,
like little
I
convenient
don't. I kind of
cartridges.
don't like physical games because I don't have enough storage, and people just
Yeah, I lose them. I
Yeah.
download
I just
everything.
lose it.
Yep.
All right, well, that was good. We you sort of became an impromptu co-host, which is fine. But if we had more call-ins, I think we would wind up cycling people out. Like when,
Yeah,
I
definitely.
mean, just so people know. But I like this though. Like this.
Yeah, it was
this
good.
Was good.
Yeah, thanks for calling in, Hot Dog. That was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I now you stream, right? What do you?
Yeah,
stream?
I stream
So
a variety
what do
of
you typically
games.
stream?
I typically stream FPS, like for first-person shooters and stuff like that. Sometimes Nintendo games. So a variety of things. Sometimes I react to shit. Like yesterday I did an 8-hour stream, and basically I played Team Fortress 2 and watched some guy go into Afghanistan for 96 hours. I mean, which was very confusing, and honestly, it just shed a new light on what Afghanistan is, and it's pretty beautiful on this part that's not on the warring. So yeah.
All right.
Plus, I'm trying to
Cool,
hit
cool.
affiliate.
Yeah, so let's help Hot Dog out with that. And Hot Dog here does occasionally join us for Mario Party, which I am looking forward to heavily. I'm gonna be making I'm gonna be playing a lot of Mario Party when that comes out. So be on the lookout for that. Other than that, I am gonna be playing Mario Party this coming Wednesday. Hopefully, Deathrow can start to become a regular, reoccurring character on my streams.
I hope
you
to
gotta
join.
yeah,
I just
you
gotta get it
hit
all
me
set
so
up.
we can set you up. Yeah, we
Yep.
gotta set you up for that. Also I am working on a video, and I've actually made great progress on my script. I am like 4/5 done. I am it's gonna take me a while to edit. My somewhat unrealistic goal, and this is a new iceberg video, like the Mario Party iceberg. I am my unrealistic goal is to get it out before Superstars. I don't know if I'll meet that. I'm gonna try, because if Superstars comes out, and if I play it enough, I might consider making a video on that if I think I have anything like worthwhile saying. I might not ultimately, but be on the lookout the end of this month or the beginning of next month. I'm gonna get another iceberg out. Check out my YouTube. Also, join my Discord, where we play a lot of party games. We're going to need a lot of people to play Mario Party with, because I want to cycle people out to play a lot of Mario Party. On top of that, I'm going to try to play other games. I do play Fall Guys quite a bit. I might pick up Limnus Gate. I don't know if anyone's interested in that game. It's still like very early and not too many people know about it. But that game is a great
What game's
concept.
that? What's that game about?
So Limnus Gate, it is a shooter game, a turn-based first-person shooter. Can you comprehend a turn-based first-person shooter?
Well, that sounds interesting.
Yeah. So let me sum it up. I did explain it a little bit earlier, but I will sum it up for you. There's a class system like Overwatch or TF2, and most of the games you have objectives to capture points, capture the flag, attack, or defend. Player 1 goes first. They play a character. They're alone. They do their objectives. Then player 2 goes. What player 1 did with their first character, it commences, and player 2 has to either kill or stop player 1. Because if you kill the player, then if you kill the character, then they're obviously dead. And then if they do that, player 2 plays again. So their characters now dies as a result of what player 2 did. Now player 1 can actually kill player 2's character before they kill your first character, so then your first character survives and proceeds with their goals. And then as a result, player 2 will take their turn. They could either try to kill the person who killed the person who killed the first character.
So it's basically 4D chess.
Yes, exactly. And it's not just straight killing. You do other things, like you can shield your characters so they live. You can poison an area so they walk into poison and then they die. You can do stuff like that. So you have to think turns ahead. to and it's basically, yeah, it's a first person chess game. But even if you know what you need to do, you have to be able to perform. You have to be able to aim, and so you still have to be good at the game. It's a great concept. It got like no advertising that I know of. I hope it becomes a big thing. So I sort of geeked out on the new game I'm playing now.
I think that's too big brain for me.
I mean, they have a robust training mode, and it's probably a good game to play with friends. I played my first game online after training. I got my team destroyed. It was awful. I had to play with someone else who also got the game new, and we sort of learned off of each other. So that was fun. I talked a bit about that game before. But yeah, anyway, we're going to be closing things off for episode 2 of the podcast. I don't know if this episode's probably longer than average or if this might be a good regular length. We're still playing by ear. Our intention was to do 1.5 to 2 hours, but we obviously are approaching 3. But I don't know, these were good conversations. We went to our topic of, games that shaped us, and we talked about general gaming conversation. So that was fun. We still need to think about other topics, so if anyone has any other topics that we could like to cover, and it's not strictly gaming, because me and Deathrow eventually want to do a conversation about stories of our workplace. And, maybe we like to hear stories from your guys' workplace. Yeah, anecdotal stuff like that. Anyway, that was a lot of fun. I'm glad you joined us, Hot Dog. I'm glad we could do it Deathrow earlier.
Thanks for joining us, Hot
Probably
Dog.
going to do
Yeah,
this
no
not
problem.
next week, but the week after. We're probably
week
going to do
after.
this once every 2 weeks.
Every 2 weeks.
That's the plan. Yeah, once every 2 weeks. Last week was an anomaly because Deathrow was at too many games, and we just had to talk about it. Anyway, wow, this is weird streaming at this hour. There's like no one I can see who I can recognize as someone I should raid.
See ya.
All right,
Eckerd
later, Hot Dog.
is playing Castlevania. Anyway,
Yeah.
Hot Dog, catch you later. I'm
Catch you
gonna
later.
set up this raid. Yeah, all right. So,
All right.
So now it's just you and me. We're gonna close things off. I'm gonna raid Eckerd, who is playing Castlevania. That's a game I actually never got into, but I'm sure that game shaped a lot of people.
That's a
So-
good series.
Yeah, let me just screen him to make sure he's good. For all of those who are listening on the podcast, be sure to follow my Twitch, GK_got_killed, or my YouTube, which is also GK_got_killed. I appreciate you all listening. To those of you who participate in the chat, I appreciate you being here. To you listening after the fact, whether you're listening to us while you're driving to work, appreciate you listening. That was the main intention of this, so you guys can listen casually throughout the week. We'll almost always be accepting call-ins for any of our topics, so if anyone has anything to say about any of our topics, feel free. We probably won't do what we did with Hot Dog and have people basically act like a co-host. I'd be more than willing to do that more often than not, but if we get multiple call-ins, we'll have to cycle people out. That's just the way it's probably going to work. But, if it's only like one other person, then you can probably hang and continue to talk. Ain't no big deal. Anyway, so I will set up this raid for Eckerd. When we get to Eckerd, you tell him the usual. He got raided. And I look forward to seeing you all. We haven't decided on what our topic is going to be 2 weeks from now. If any of you wants to give us any suggestions, feel free to do so in our Discord. Join our Discord. It should be linked on maybe not on podcast website if you're listening, but it's linked from my Twitch channel. Anyway, I will catch you all later, and you all have a good night.
Thanks for joining, guys. Take care. Bye.